Chapter 331. Heavenly Bat Steps. Yi Xing took a step forward and disappeared in a flash. He had switched positions in an instant. Boom 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 boom. The Yin Young Master attacked like lightning. Scorching Sun Finger and Cold Yin Palm attacked continuously. His attacks were hot and cold at the same time. However, Yi Xing's Heavenly Bat Steps, which had reached the perfection stage, combined with the Tidal Realm's wind momentum, made him unbelievably fast. He was even faster than the Tian Luo Young Master's sword steps. Even though the Yin Young Master's attacks were ferocious, he could not even touch the corner of Yi Xing's clothes after 10 moves. Yi Xing's speed is so fast? Many of the younger martial sages among the spectators exclaimed. Yi Xing's speed was so fast that they could not even see his figure clearly. Even some of the older perfected persons were secretly surprised. It was shocking that a martial sage could reach such a speed. The Yin Young Master attacked more than 10 times, but there was no effect. He immediately retreated and said coldly, "Coward, you only know how to dodge. Do you dare to fight me head-on? If you don't, why don't you admit defeat and slap yourself 10 times? Yi Xing's Heavenly Bat Steps had reached the perfection stage. Combined with the Tidal Realm's wind momentum, he was not only fast, but also unpredictable. Unlike the Tian Luo Young Master sword steps, the Yin Young Master could not see the direction of Yi Xing's footwork and could not determine where Yi Xing would land next. He could only use words to force Yi Xing to fight him head-on. Yi Xing stood a few hundred meters away and said, "What's the hurry? I was just warming up. You can't beat me in speed, so you can't beat me head-on either." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xing exploded with a terrifying fire momentum. He performed the Flaming Dipper Fist and punched out, attacking the Yin Young Master. Containing the Tidal Realm's fire momentum, Yi Xing's Flaming Dipper Fist was much more powerful. When the Yin Young Master saw that Yi Xing had taken the initiative to attack, he didn't think much of Yi Xing, even though his aura seemed stronger than before. In his opinion, if Yi Xing really had the strength to contend against him, he would not have been instantly pushed back by him just now, nor would he have been able to continuously dodge his attacks. Good! The Yin Young Master roared, and the force of water and force of fire burst out. His right hand's ardent sun finger and left hand's cold Yin palm attacked again. His momentum was like Mount Tai pressing down on Yi Xing. Most of the warriors watching the battle had the same opinion as the Yin Young Master. They thought that Yi Xing was seeking his own death by initiating the attack. He would be defeated by the Yin Young Master's combined attack. However, some of the martialists who had an extremely profound understanding of the forces of heaven and earth revealed looks of surprise. They could clearly feel that the force of fire contained in Yi Xing's punch was extraordinary. The power of this punch seemed to have increased qualitatively. When the fist force collided with the finger radiance and the palm radiance, there was a deafening explosion. Most of the warriors thought that Yi Xing would be instantly sent flying by the Yin Young Master. But the reality shocked them. Yi Xing's punch was unbelievably powerful. It was not at a disadvantage even when it collided with the Yin Young Master's combined attack. Boom! Yi Xing did not retreat half a step. In the blink of an eye, he threw out another punch. The fist force was resplendent, and its power was even stronger. Its momentum was like thunder, and its speed was like lightning. The air vibrated and transformed into waves that rushed forward. The Yin Young Master was shocked. He used the ardent sun finger on his right hand and the cold Yin palm on his left hand at the same time. They attacked fiercely and collided with Yi Xing's fist force. The result shocked him again. The fist force shook but did not disperse. Instead, his ardent sun finger radiance and cold Yin palm radiance were instantly shattered by the fist force. In an instant, Yi Xing had turned the tables. The terrifying fist force attacked forward. Its power shook the heavens. The scorching aura surged in all directions. Its momentum was like a landslide and a tsunami. It was unstoppable. Facing Yi Xing's powerful attack, the Yin Young Master had to retreat a step to avoid the attack. Boom! Boom 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 boom. Every time Yi Xing threw out a punch, there would be a loud explosion that shook the heavens and the earth. After a few punches, there were continuous explosions. Every time the Yin Young Master retreated a step, Yi Xing would take a step forward. The terrifying fiery fist force forced the Yin Young Master to retreat step by step. Looking at the scene, the warriors who were certain that the Yin Young Master would win against Yi Xing were all shocked. They could not believe that Yi Xing's power had suddenly multiplied. He had overshadowed the Yin Yang Master in one move. If this continued, the Yin Yang Master would be suppressed and forced to retreat. Anyone could see that something was wrong. With every step the Yin Yang Master retreated, the Yin Yang Master's aura weakened. With every step Yi Xing took, the Yin Yang Master's aura grew stronger. If this continued, in less than 10 moves, the disparity between the two's auras would reach an extreme level. The Yin Yang Master would not be far from defeat. The Yin Yang Master revealed a horrified expression. He had also comprehended the power of fire. He could clearly feel that his power of fire was being suppressed by Yi Xing's power of fire. Could it be that his power of fire has reached the minute realm? Sensing the horrifying power of Yi Xing's fist force, the Yin Yang Master could not help but guess a terrifying fact. Normally, one could only comprehend the minute realm after reaching the advanced veritable personage realm. Even a genius would be pretty good if they could comprehend it before becoming a 7-star veritable personage. However, Yi Liang was only a 7-star martial sage. How could he comprehend the power of fire to the minute realm? Even though the Yin Yang Master guessed it, he did not dare to believe it. He was also a martial technique genius with high comprehension ability. He was only an 8-star martial sage. Be it the ardent sun finger or the cold Yin palm, he had already cultivated them to near perfection. It was precisely because of his high comprehension ability that he had a deep understanding of the power of water and the power of fire. However, the Yin Yang Master's power of fire was still far from reaching the minute realm. Thus, he did not dare to believe that Yi Xing had already comprehended it to that level. Regardless of whether the Yin Yang Master believed it or not, his description became increasingly grim. He could clearly feel that Yi Xing's aura was accumulating increasingly stronger. Thus, the power contained in the fist force was also becoming increasingly horrifying. If this continued, he would be suppressed to death by Yi Xing. Yi Xing, do you really think that you are a match for me? Today, I will let you experience this young master's astral form of the same origin of water and fire. The Yin Yang Master shouted, and a beam of starlight shot out from his forehead, hovering above him. It was a star that was half fire and half sea. This star was of the same origin of water and fire. It was half fire and half sea. It was very obvious. Furthermore, this astral form contained 2 types of astral powers. One was water and the other was fire. Although it looked like a single astral form, in reality, the Yin Yang Master's astral form was no different from a dual astral form. This was the most terrifying aspect of him. Once he used his astral form, it was as if he was using 2 astral forms. It was extremely powerful. Yi Xing, even if your strength is comparable to that of the most ordinary half-step perfected persons, you will not be able to withstand a single blow from my astral form of the same origin of water and fire. The Yin Yang Master shouted loudly. His martial arts did not change. It was still the scorching sun finger in his right hand and the cold Yin palm in his left. He attacked Yi Xing. The martial arts did not change, but the power had greatly changed. Even though Yi Xing had used the minute realm's power of fire into his flaming fist force, he could still feel the terror of the Yin Yang Master's attack. His opponent's attack was so powerful that it was difficult for him to withstand it. Heavenly Bat Steps. Yi Xing decisively gave up on clashing head-on with the Yin Yang Master. In an instant, his body moved like lightning and dodged to the side. Whoosh, at the same time, a ray of starlight shot out from between Yi Xing's eyebrows. In an instant, it turned into a blazing star that floated in the air. Yi Xing also used his astral form. His flame astral form had absorbed enough flame essence in the sea of flames. It had been raised to the limit of a superior grade astral form. The flame astral power it contained was extremely terrifying. In terms of grade, Yi Xing's flame astral form was a level higher than the Yin Yang Master's water-fire astral form. Above it was the superior grade astral form. However, in terms of power, the Yin Yang Master's water-fire astral form was stronger. After all, the Yin Yang Master's astral form contained 2 types of astral power. Water and fire were of the same origin. It was almost equivalent to 2 astral forms. All the spectating ancient martial art practitioners stared unblinkingly at Yi Xing and the Yin Yang Master. Both of them had used their astral forms. This was already a battle of peak strength. Kid, it's useless even if you hide. Once I use my water-fire astral form, even half-step perfected persons will have few opponents. Lose for me. Haha. After using the water-fire astral form, the Yin-Yang Master was full of confidence. He laughed maniacally as he attacked Yi Xing 4th update. Please recommend me. Keep up the good work. I'll give you the 5th update later. Chapter 332. Yi Xing activated his superbrain to scan. He knew how powerful the Yin-Yang Master's attack was. Although his fire astral aspect was of a higher level, its power was still inferior to his opponent's. Therefore, even with the surging star force of the fire astral aspect infused into his flaming dipper fist, it was still difficult for him to fight the Yin-Yang Master head-on. However, Yi Xing did not dodge the Yin-Yang Master's terrifying attack. With his superbrain, not only could he detect the power of his opponent's attack, but he could also detect the weakness of his opponent's attack. The Yin-Yang Master's Scorching Sun Finger and Cold Yin Palm were close to perfection and had very few weaknesses. However, the Yin-Yang Master was multitasking. His combination of the Scorching Sun Finger and Cold Yin Palm was not flawless. In an instant, Yi Xing found the weakness of the Yin-Yang Master's combination of the two spiritual martial arts. Although it was not enough to defeat his opponent in one move, it was enough to attack the weak point and fight head-on. Flaming Dipper Fist. The star force of the fire astral aspect caused Yi Xing's flaming dipper fist to become even more powerful. When he punched out, the void in front of him turned into a terrifying shockwave. Such a terrifying punch landed on the weak point of the Yin-Yang Master's combination of the two spiritual martial arts. One could imagine the destruction it caused. Even though the Yin-Yang Master was under the protection of his fire and water astral aspect, he did not dare to underestimate it. Boom 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 boom. Yi Xing punched out again and again. The two of them exchanged punches and palms, attacking with their fingers and blocking with their fists. It was a very intense fight. The surrounding martial artists looked at the two of them in shock. This was the attack of the two of them at their peak. It was indeed terrifying. At this moment, everyone thought that it was a wise decision for Tian Luo to admit defeat against Yi Xing. At this moment, young Master Tian Luo was also looking at Yi Xing. He could see that Yi Xing was at a disadvantage at this moment. However, he had a premonition that Yi Xing had more tricks up his sleeve. The Yin-Yang Master was extremely depressed. He could clearly feel that his attack power was much stronger than Yi Xing's. However, every time Yi Xing's Flame Gang Fist attacked, it would hit the weak points of the Yin-Yang Master's two spiritual martial arts. That was the weakest point of the Yin-Yang Master's attack. Thus, even though Yi Xing's attack power was much weaker than his, he was still able to fight him head-on. The Yin-Yang Master's explosive strength was even more powerful. He could clearly crush Yi Xing with absolute strength, but every time Yi Xing attacked, he would hit his weak spot. Even though he had great strength, he couldn't display the effects that he should have. Even though the Yin-Yang Master had the upper hand in the battle, he was still extremely sullen. It was only at this moment that he realized that Yi Xing was actually such a difficult opponent to defeat. He attached sufficient importance to Yi Xing and did not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. The Yin-Yang Master was alert. As he used the Scorching Sun Finger and the Cold Yin Palm, he tried his best to reduce the weak points between the two spiritual martial arts so that Yi Xing could hit his weak spot. However, it was extremely difficult to use two spiritual martial arts at the same time. It would take a long time to eliminate the weak points between the two spiritual martial arts. Thus, the Yin-Yang Master could only try his best to hide the weak points. However, Yi Xing was always able to accurately attack the weak points at the first moment. This made the Yin-Yang Master feel that he could not use his full strength. However, the Yin-Yang Master's method was not completely useless. As the weak points between the two spiritual martial arts became more and more hidden, it became more and more difficult for Yi Xing to hit them. The battle became more and more serious. If they continued to fight like this, Yi Xing would definitely be defeated. As the two fought head-on, their attacks were as fast as lightning. Soon, they had exchanged more than 30 moves. At this moment, Yi Xing suddenly attacked fiercely and his body retreated rapidly. He used the sky bat steps and instantly retreated hundreds of meters away. The Yin-Yang Master's lips curled up in a proud smile. He said, "Boy, you're finally at your limit? Although you are stronger than I expected, you cannot change the result. Today you will lose." Yi Xing's expression was indifferent. He took off the blazing flame gloves and placed them into his storage ring. Then, he lifted his right hand and a black spirit spear appeared in his grasp. The black spirit spear was pitch black and even the spearhead was forged from spirit crow gold. It exuded a powerful aura. 2 dragon phantoms were carved into the spear shaft. As Yi Xing held it in his hands, he could feel the terrifying strength contained within. High-grade spirit spear. Black dragon spear. Seeing the black dragon spear in Yi Xing's hands, the martial artist's pupils shrank. Many of them bloomed with a sharp light. A high-grade spiritual martial art was extremely rare and yet Yi Xing actually had 2 of them. The black dragon spear also came from the ancient Azure Cloudland. Everyone knew that Yi Xing would naturally use it whenever he needed to. Yi Xing grasped the black dragon spear in his right hand and pointed it towards the heavens. He faintly smiled as he looked at the Yin Yang young master. Yi Xing said, "You might not know, but I don't specialize in palm skills. In truth, what I specialize in is spear skills. I was just playing around with you just now." The Yin Yang young master's smile instantly froze. Yi Xing had fought with him for so long, but that was actually just playing around? It wasn't just the Yin Yang young master whose smile froze. Most of the spectating martial artists were shocked. In particular, the martial artists of the Sun Moon sect and Profound Underworld sect. As they saw the Yin Yang young master gain the upper hand and was about to win, they were all overjoyed. But as they heard Yi Xing's words, they were all stunned. With a spear in hand, Yi Xing's aura instantly became incomparably sharp. The black dragon spear in his hands was a high-grade spirit weapon. Yi Xing felt incomparably comfortable, hundreds of times more comfortable than when he held the purple plume spear. The glove's function was to protect the hands. Although it could increase the power of star essence, in terms of striking power, it was far inferior to true offensive weapons like sabers, spears, swords, and halberds. As a high-grade spirit weapon, the black dragon spear contained a formidable strength to begin with. In terms of increasing Yi Xing's striking power, it was even better than the blazing flame glove. At the Heaven Net sect, the Heaven Net sect's Heaven Net young master looked at Yi Xing from afar. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. He thought to himself, "He really does have an even more formidable method." At this time, the Yin Yang young master felt a foreboding feeling rise in his heart. Yi Xing was first forced back by the Yin Yang young master. Then, after his fist contained the potential of fire, his strength suddenly rose and he was actually able to suppress the Yin Yang young master. When the Yin Yang young master tried to use astrology, for some unknown reason, Yi Xing was always able to see the flaws in the connection of his 2 different spirit martial arts, causing him to be unable to use his full strength. And now, Yi Xing was actually saying that he was only playing around. The Yin Yang young master felt as if he were a monkey that had been played by Yi Xing. Moreover, Yi Xing's methods were endless, causing the Yin Yang young master to feel that Yi Xing was an unfathomable existence. He felt that Yi Xing was like a bottomless pool of water. With this thought in mind, the Yin Yang young master's momentum immediately weakened. As for Yi Xing, with the black dragon spear in his hand, his momentum was like a mountain. Yi Xing stepped forwards, walking towards the Yin Yang young master. With every step he took, his momentum became even stronger. Yi Xing said, "I've played around enough just now. Now, it's time to play for real. My high-grade spirit martial arts aren't well trained. What I'm familiar with is medium-grade spirit martial arts. Take my spear." Whoosh, as his voice fell, Yi Xing and his spear turned into a dark beam of light. Dark spirit spear art. Flash of light. The momentum of wind, the momentum of fire, and the momentum of darkness, these 3 great influences of the world were all fused into this move. Whether it was speed or striking power, both rapidly rose. Moreover, the fire star aspect provided endless fire star force, causing that dark beam of light to be covered with a layer of fire star force, making it even more powerful. The Yin Yang young master's eyes widened. The strength and speed of this spear strike was terrifying. It was like it had flown out from hell and suddenly arrived in front of him. The Yin Yang young master revolved his celestial essence to the limit. The fire and water star aspect in the sky also bloomed with light, showering down a massive amount of water and fire star force. Ardent Sun Finger. Coldine Palm. The Yin Yang young master instantly displayed 2 different kinds of spirit martial arts in a single breath, erupting his strength to the limit. Finger light and palm light overlapped, simultaneously attacking Yi Xing's spear. Clang, with a loud explosive sound. The Yin-Yang Master's strength was truly heaven-defying. Even though Yi Xing grasped the Black Dragon Spear and displayed the Dark Spirit Spear art to perfection, as well as the power of three great influences of the world, he was still blocked by the Yin-Yang Master. However, what the Yin-Yang Master never imagined was that at this moment, Yi Xing waved his left hand and an arrow shot out. Yi Xing faintly smiled. In truth, I'm also good at archery. Chapter 333. The power of a perfect stage middle-grade spiritual martial force was comparable to that of a small success stage upper-grade spiritual martial force. Furthermore, the Dark Spirit Spear technique was a dark attribute martial technique. It was much more powerful than normal martial techniques of the same level. The perfect stage Dark Spirit Spear technique combined with the three forces of heaven and earth, two of which had reached the minute subtlety stage. Furthermore, it also contained the power of the fire celestial phenomenon. One could imagine how terrifying the attack would be. Even though Yi Xing was only a peak 7-star martial saint, the power of that spear attack was enough to compete with a half-enlightened being. The Yin-Yang Master was indeed powerful. Even though Yi Xing's spear attack was so powerful, he was still able to block it. However, the Yin-Yang Master was barely able to block it. He had used almost all of his strength to block Yi Xing's spear attack. Originally, Yi Xing's casual arrow would not be able to threaten the Yin-Yang Master. However, when the arrow suddenly shot over, it was like a stroke of God. It was so perfect that it instantly made the Yin-Yang Master feel a chill in his heart. All the hair on his body stood on end. An attack did not have to be powerful to be effective. It depended on the timing. When the timing was right, a straw could crush a camel. Currently, the Yin-Yang Master had used almost all of his strength to block Yi Xing's Dark Spirit Spear technique. He was like a camel that had reached its limit. The arrow that Yi Xing suddenly shot out was that straw. Of course, this was only a metaphor. The Yin-Yang Master's strength was not something a camel could compare to. Even if he had reached his limit, with the support of the endless star power from the water and fire, he could still explode with a lot of power. However, Yi Xing's arrow was also not something a straw could compare to. Not only was it extremely fast, but it also contained a terrifying power. This arrow came too suddenly. The Yin-Yang Master had no time to block it. At the critical moment, the Yin-Yang Master twisted his body. His entire body spun like a spiral, creating a whirlwind. The arrow was like a flowing light. It was extremely fast. The distance between the two was also close. In an instant, it had arrived before the Yin-Yang Master. However, the Yin-Yang Master's reaction was indeed fast. In an instant, he rushed to the side like a whirlwind and dodged the arrow attack. In the blink of an eye, the arrow shot out, and the Yin-Yang Master dodged. Everything happened almost at the same time, less than the blink of an eye. Most of the spectating warriors were shocked when the arrow appeared. They felt that the Yin-Yang Master would not be able to dodge this arrow no matter what he did. However, when the Yin-Yang Master dodged the arrow, the crowd was even more shocked. The Yin-Yang Master's reaction speed far exceeded their expectations. At the same time, they heaved a sigh of relief. However, before they could let out a sigh of relief, they saw the arrow turn in the air and continue to shoot towards the Yin-Yang Master. Their hearts tightened again. The arrow turned in the air and changed direction. What level of archery was this? This meant that Yi Xing's attainments in archery had reached the second stage, follow your heart, and he could change the trajectory of his arrows as he pleased. As a result, the Yin-Yang Master was once again in danger. However, when the arrow changed direction and continued to shoot, it still took a moment for it to pass. In this brief moment, the water and fire star aspect above the Yin-Yang Master had already released a surging power of water and fire. Just as the arrow was about to strike the Yin-Yang Master's body, the power of water and fire intertwined to block it. Take another move of mine. Dark Spirit Spear. At this time, Yi Xing shouted out loud. The Black Dragon Spear shined with a brilliant black light and a massive dark spear shadow shot out. As the Yin-Yang Master dodged the arrow attack, Yi Xing didn't remain idle. He revolved his celestial essence and raised his aura, using the Dark Spirit Spear to attack the Yin-Yang Master once more. Moreover, this was the Dark Spirit Spear's ultimate move. The huge dark spear radiance shot forward. The void in front of Lin Fan trembled at this moment, and a terrifying qi wave rushed out. Yi Xing's spear strike was the strongest attack he had prepared. As for the Yin Yang Master, after blocking Yi Xing's divine light flash, he was forced into a fluster by the sudden attack of the arrow. He spent a tremendous amount of effort and finally managed to use the water and fire star aspect to block the arrow. But before he could take a breath, Yi Xing's even more powerful ultimate move had already arrived. Although the arrow that Yi Xing casually shot out just now hadn't been able to injure the Yin Yang Master, it had created a massive effect. The Yin Yang Master didn't even have time to catch his breath. The dark spear light shot out for hundreds of feet, instantly tearing through the void. In the powerful shockwave, the black dragon spear was 100 times more powerful. It pierced through the shockwave and instantly arrived in front of the Yin Yang Master. The Yin Yang Master's complexion changed. Just that wild shockwave had caused him to feel a terrifying strength. As for the dark spear light from the black dragon spear, it was terrifying to the extreme, making him feel a sense of imminent death. At this time, the Yin Yang Master's strength completely erupted. His celestial essence revolved to the limit and the water and fire star aspect in the sky bloomed with a brilliant light. Water fire star. Block for me. Endless water attribute and fire attribute star forces surged out from the water and fire star aspect. Combined with Yi Xing's half-fire and half-yin star essence, they wove together into a barrier of starlight. This barrier of starlight contained the power of water and fire. It constantly revolved and possessed a terrifying defensive ability. Beneath the shockwave, it remained motionless. Bang! In that instant, the black dragon spear thrust out with a dark spear light, thrusting into the water and fire star aspect, causing a heaven-shaking explosion. This strike was like the sharpest spear piercing into the toughest shield. Was the spear sharper or was the shield tougher? In the blink of an eye, the answer was clear. Gotcha! The water and fire star aspect instantly broke apart as a hole was pierced through by the black dragon spear. However, the defensive power of the water and fire star aspect was indeed extraordinary. After the black dragon spear broke through it, its strength was greatly reduced. The dark spear light that pierced through the spear point completely vanished. Whoosh! The Yin Yang Master borrowed the strength of this spear strike to explode backwards. In front of him was the water and fire star aspect that blocked his path. However, in the center of the water and fire star aspect, there was a head-sized hole. This was the result of the black dragon spear's strike. At this time, the terrifying aura of the dark spirit spear still lingered in this hole. Even though the power of water and fire stars gushed out to repair this hole, the speed was extremely slow. In the blink of an eye, the Yin Yang Master drew back several hundred meters. Moreover, he continued to retreat. He knew that Yi Xing had used his ultimate move and erupted with his strongest attack, consuming a great deal of energy. As long as he could get away from Yi Xing and survive Yi Xing's next wave of attacks, he would be able to reverse his disadvantage and turn defeat into victory. After Yi Xing used the dark spirit spear, he didn't rush to chase after the Yin Yang Master. Instead, he put away the black dragon spear and took out the purple firmament bow and purple gold arrow. The Yin Yang Master wanted to open up some distance and avoid Yi Xing's attack, but that was simply wishful thinking. To Yi Xing, within a 10-mile radius, distance didn't exist. He nocked an arrow, drew the bow, and released it in a single breath. Azure Dragon Arrow style. In an instant, the arrow left the bow and broke through the air, turning into a giant azure dragon that roared out. The speed of the arrow was over 10 times faster than the Yin Yang Master's retreat. The Yin Yang Master wanted to get away from Yi Xing and let out a sigh of relief. But before he could relax, an even more terrifying attack came hurtling towards him. The arrow contained the potential of subtle wind and was fast to the extreme. It also contained the potential of subtle fire and the potential of darkness, greatly increasing its strength. Moreover, the purple firmament bow itself was a peak medium-grade spirit bow. When combined with Yi Xing's power of star essence, the power of astrology, and all sorts of other great potentials, his strength had reached a horrifying degree. Even if he didn't use the Sagittarius constellation, it was still enough to kill most half-step true masters. The Azure Dragon Phantom smashed into the water and fire star, emitting a heaven-shaking explosion as cracks appeared on the water and fire star. Whoosh! The arrow shot forwards without slowing at all. It instantly passed through the hole in the water and fire star, and arrived in front of the Yin Yang Master in the blink of an eye. At this time, as the water and fire star was attacked, The Yin-Yang Master's star essence shook and he found it difficult to revolve it. The defensive effect of his protective star essence fell to its lowest point and was instantly torn apart by the arrow. The Yin-Yang Master's body shook. He felt as if something sharp had pierced through his throat, causing a cold sweat to drip down his back. He screamed out loud. All of the surrounding martial artists cried out in alarm. If this arrow had pierced through the Yin-Yang Master's throat, it would have been enough to take his life. Please recommend me. Please enter the rankings. Chapter 334. Formation. Elder Lin Fenghua and Tool Pavilion Elder Hua Tianshu sat opposite each other in the guest hall of the Tool Pavilion Elder Mansion. There was an incense burner burning incense in front of Hua Tianshu and Lin Fenghua. The entire guest hall was filled with a sweet fragrance. The maid served tea to Lin Fenghua, the Formation Elder, and then respectfully retreated. Hua Tianshu made an inviting gesture to Lin Fenghua and said, "Elder Lin, please have some tea." Lin Fenghua lifted the teacup to his mouth and felt something was wrong. He put down the teacup and said, "Elder Hua, you called me here and said you wanted to tell me the secret about Yi Xing. Tell me." Hua Tianshu smiled faintly and said, "Elder Lin is really impatient. You don't even want to drink tea. Do you think I'll harm you after I invited you here?" Lin Fenghua did not respond. He did not have the intention to drink tea and just looked at Hua Tianshu quietly. After a while Lin Fenghua said, "If Elder Hua doesn't want to tell me, then I'll take my leave." "Hey!" Hua Tianshu raised her hand and stopped Lin Fenghua. She said, "Elder Lin, please wait for a moment. I do have a secret about Yi Xing. Elder Lin. My disciple He Hongjiao died in the Falling Star secret realm. Yi Xing was the one who killed her." Lin Fenghua looked calm and said, "You call that a secret?" Yi Xing had reported most of his experiences in the Falling Star secret realm to Lin Fenghua. Lin Fenghua naturally knew that He Hongjiao was killed by Yi Xing. Moreover, he also knew that He Hongjiao had the forbidden weapon, the soul-severing shuttle, which Hua Tianshu gave her. Therefore, Hua Tianshu was the one who wanted to kill Yi Xing. No one saw He Hongjiao die in the Falling Star secret realm. Even if Hua Tianshu knew that Yi Xing killed He Hongjiao, there was no evidence. She could not punish Yi Xing according to the sect rules. Moreover, even if there was evidence, Lin Fenghua would not allow Hua Tianshu to convict Yi Xing. When Hua Tianshu saw Lin Fenghua's reaction, she knew that Yi Xing had already told Lin Fenghua about what had happened in the Falling Star secret zone. Moreover, Lin Fenghua would definitely protect Yi Xing. However, Hua Tianshu's purpose in talking about Yi Xing was not to punish Yi Xing, but to make other plans. She did not care whether Lin Fenghua would protect Yi Xing or not. Hua Tianshu said, "I'm afraid Yi Xing has an extremely sinister motive for killing geniuses of the same generation. I'm guessing that Yi Xing is most likely a spy that the East Fu sect has placed in our sect to kill our geniuses, so that our sect will have no successors." "Nonsense!" Lin Fenghua slammed the table and stood up immediately. She shouted angrily, "Elder Hua, you are the elder of our sect's Tool Pavilion and the sect leader's wife. What kind of identity do you have? Why are you slandering a junior disciple? What are your intentions?" Lin Fenghua was indeed enraged. Her breathing quickened. The East Fu sect was the Falling Star sect's archenemy, especially the Falling Star sect's Lin clan's cultivators. More than 100 years ago, countless people had died in the hands of the East Fu sect. How could Lin Fenghua not be angry when Hua Tianshu said that her disciple was a spy of the East Fu sect in front of her? Seeing Lin Fenghua's anger, Hua Tianshu was not angry at all. Instead, she chuckled. Hua Tianshu smiled and said, "Elder Lin, why are you so agitated? I'm just guessing. I didn't say that Yi Xing is definitely a spy of the East Fu sect." Lin Fenghua said angrily, "If Elder Hua called me here just to say this, then I'm afraid I won't keep you company." Then, Lin Fenghua turned and left without giving Hua Tianshu any face. "Elder Lin." Hua Tianshu stopped Lin Fenghua and said, "Since you're not interested in Yi Xing's secret, how about I tell you one of mine?" Lin Fenghua stood still and did not turn around. He was not interested in Hua Tianshu's secret. He snorted and continued to walk out. Hua Tianshu looked at Lin Fenghua's back and the corner of her mouth rose. "Actually, I'm the spy of the East Fu sect." Lin Fenghua's body trembled. He turned and looked at Hua Tianshu with a shocked expression. "What did you say?" Hua Tianshu smiled and said, I said. I'm the real spy of the East Fu sect. The Falling Star sect's weapon pavilion's elder and the sect master's wife was a spy of the East Fu sect? Lin Fenghua found it hard to digest the news. He could not believe it. Lin Fenghua said, Elder Hua, are you kidding me? Even if you're the sect master's wife, you can't talk nonsense like that. They were in the Falling Star sect right now. If Hua Tianshu was a spy from the Dongfu sect, she would be digging her own grave. Lin Fenghua was already in disbelief at the news. After thinking about it, she couldn't believe it and thought that Hua Tianshu was talking nonsense. As soon as Lin Fenghua finished speaking, he suddenly felt weak in his legs. He felt like he could not stand, so he quickly supported himself on the chair next to him. Hua Tianshu's smile became brighter and more demonic. She said, Lin Fenghua, do you feel weak in your limbs and tired in your body? You can't stand even if you want to, and the astral energy in your body is not listening to you? Lin Fenghua broke out in a cold sweat. His body went limp and he fell on the chair next to him. He looked at Hua Tianshu angrily. You're really a spy of the East Fu sect. Lin Fenghua tried his best to circulate his astral energy, but he could not use it at all. Lin Fenghua's eyes were filled with horror. Today was the day when the young talents came out of the Qingyun ancient land and the 10 sects grand competition would be held. More than half of the perfected persons and elders of the Falling Star sect went to the old side of the Azure Cloud sect. There were only 6 perfected persons left in the sect, including him and the Grand Elder Lin Shuyuan. Since Hua Tianshu was a spy, the number had to be reduced to 5. He was the formation elder of the Falling Star sect. Now that he was in Hua Tianshu's hands, the Falling Star sect's formation was not controlled by him. With Hua Tianshu cooperating with the East Fu sect, the Falling Star sect was in danger today. Ha 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 ha. Hua Tianshu laughed out loud and said, Are you surprised? Indeed, when I found out that I'm from the East Fu sect and the sister of the East Fu sect master, Watanabe Xiong, I was surprised and in disbelief. However, it's the truth. The blood of the Watanabe family flows in my body. I've done a blood test with the East Fu sect master, and it's absolutely true. Moreover, my parents left their mark on me so that I can recognize my ancestors in the future. Lin Fenghua felt more and more powerless. He had a lot of astral energy, but he could not circulate it. He was filled with anger, but he could not vent it. He wanted to shout, but he could not raise his voice. Lin Fenghua's eyes flashed with despair. What kind of poison is this? Hua Tianshu stood up, walked to the sound furnace and said, Traceless incense. It's odorless, traceless, and won't have any reaction for a certain period of time. Only when enough of it is absorbed will it take effect. The body will be powerless, and the astral energy will not be able to circulate. This is a poison that's especially effective against enlightened masters. My elder brother left the Qingyun region and spent a lot of effort to get this for you. Lin Fenghua, you'll die a worthy death. Then, Hua Tianshu walked toward Lin Fenghua step by step. A cold light flashed in her hand, and a spiritual sword with a sharp aura appeared. Lin Fenghua was in a dead end, but he was not afraid. He gritted his teeth and said, Even if you kill me, don't you dare touch the foundation of the Falling Star sect. When my disciple grows up, the East Fu sect will be destroyed. Hua Tianshu laughed and said, Haha, you don't know, do you? My elder brother has become a 4-star enlightened master with the help of the Sun Moon sect. After I kill you, I'll destroy the Falling Star sect's formation from the inside and let my elder brother and the others in. Those who stay in the sect will either surrender and become slaves of the East Fu sect or die. No one will be able to escape. Haha. As for that little bastard Yi Xing, he should have been killed by Sir Watanabe in the Qingyun ancient land. The other disciples of the Falling Star sect should have been wiped out because the Flying Cloud sect has joined forces with the East Fu sect. Today, none of your disciples will be able to come out. As for Lu Tianyuan and the others, haha, there's a trap waiting for them. They can't return to the Falling Star sect. Even if they die, they can only die outside the sect. After today, the Falling Star sect will be history. Chapter 335. The old site of the Azure Cloud sect, outside the Azure Cloud ancient land. The final battle of the 10 sects grand tournament had finally come to an end. The victor had been decided. Just as the cultivators were exclaiming, the arrow that was about to pierce through the young master's throat suddenly stopped in front of his throat. The tip of the arrow had already made contact with the young master's skin. It had broken through a bit of flesh and blood was seeping out. At this moment, the young master's heart was trembling. His body was covered in cold sweat as he felt the sharp aura at his throat. He didn't dare to move. A drop of sweat slid down his nose and dripped onto the arrow. The young master's gaze followed the drop of sweat. However, he could only see the arrow shaft. He couldn't see the arrow at his throat. The more he couldn't see, the more terrified he was. The cultivators of the Sun-Moon sect were all agitated at this moment. The young master was a monstrous prodigy that was hard to come by in 1,000 years in the entire Jianghu region. He had the potential to lead the Sun-Moon sect to become a superior one-star sect. If he was killed by Yixing's arrow, it would be a devastating blow to the Sun-Moon sect. Therefore, when they saw that Yixing's arrow was already at the young master's throat, the enlightened masters of the Sun-Moon sect were all furious. They instantly unleashed a terrifying aura. The arrow was too fast. They couldn't help, but if Yixing dared to kill the young master, he would definitely be torn into pieces by the furious enlightened masters of the Sun-Moon sect. When they saw that the arrow had stopped in front of the young master's throat, the enlightened masters of the Sun-Moon sect heaved a sigh of relief. Yixing's attainments in archery had reached the second stage. Follow your heart. He could control the arrow to change its direction in the air. Of course, he could also control the arrow to move forward or stop. If he didn't have the confidence to stop the arrow, Yixing wouldn't have dared to shoot at the young master's throat. He was very clear that if he killed the young master, the enlightened masters of the Sun-Moon sect would definitely kill him. No one would be able to save him. Yixing put away the purple firmament bow. He looked at the young master, who was drenched in cold sweat under the threat of the arrow. He said, "Yang Ming, you've lost." The young master swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His heart pounded rapidly. He said, Yes, I've lost. Please move the arrow away." Lost. Young master had been defeated. In this 10-sect grand tournament, the dark horse, Yixing's results had exceeded the expectations of all the martial artists. At the beginning, Yixing was firmly in the top 3. The martial artists were already very shocked, but in their hearts, they also believed that Yixing had reached his limit and could only be third. However, young Master Tian Luo's admission of defeat shocked the crowd. Yixing had actually jumped to second place, which was beyond everyone's expectations. Now, even the young master had been defeated by Yixing. Yet, Yixing had actually won first place in the 10-sect grand competition. This wasn't just unexpected, it was simply unimaginable. All the martial artists looked at the young man in the field. He was only 17 years old, but he was already a 7-star martial saint. Moreover, he had the terrifying battle prowess of a half-step Taoist master. He had surpassed the young master in one fell swoop and became the new number 1 of the younger generation in the Jianghu region. At such a young age, with such cultivation, with such strength, he had not only broken the 1,000-year record of the Jianghu region. Perhaps in the history of the Jianghu region, there had never been such a heaven-defying monstrous genius. At this moment, Yixing suddenly became lofty in the eyes of the crowd. His strength made them have no choice but to admit that he was indeed a peerless genius of the same generation in the Jianghu region. Yixing waved his hand and the arrow turned into a stream of light, flying back into Yixing's hand and disappearing. Yixing took a step forward. His eyes were like arrows, piercing through everything. He looked at the young master and said, "Yang Ming, it's time for you to fulfill the bet." The young master's expression changed. He wanted him to slap himself 10 times in front of the crowd and call himself a lowly pig or dog 10 times. Before the battle, the young master was full of confidence, thinking that victory was in his grasp. He thought that he would definitely defeat Yixing, so he proposed this bet. His goal was to defeat Yixing and humiliate Yixing after Yixing. However, he had never expected that the battle would end like this. Slapping himself 10 times and calling himself a lowly pig or dog 10 times. When this happened to Yixing, the young master felt very satisfied. However, now that it was his turn to complete the bet, he knew how humiliating it was. No! The Yin Master took a step back and said, "No twice." He had no intention of fulfilling the bet. Yixing's eyes narrowed and said, "Yang Ming, this is the bet you proposed. All the cultivators here can be witnesses. Why? Do you want to be a coward in front of the most elite cultivators in the Qingyun region? Do you want to be a shameless person who goes back on his words?" In the distance, the Sun Moon Sect Master shouted, "Yang Ming, come back!" When the Yin Master heard this voice, it was as if he had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. He shouted, "I'm coming, Sect Master." Then, he dashed towards the Sun Moon Sect. The cultivators were stunned. The Sun Moon Sect Master, Yin Wudao, actually let the Yin Master back down just like that? Yixing's heart was burning with anger. If he had lost, he definitely wouldn't have been able to escape. He would have been slapped 10 times and cursed 10 times. However, the Yin Master had lost and retreated just like that. Was he going to let it go just like that? Yixing looked towards the Sun Moon Sect and shouted, "Is this how the Sun Moon Sect handles things? Going back on your words in front of everyone, despicable and shameless. Do you have any shame?" The spectators all around started to jeer. Obviously, they looked down on the Sun Moon Sect's actions. Especially the cultivators from the Sun Moon Sect and the Blue Thunder Sect. They all sneered. The Sun Moon Sect's actions were indeed despicable. The Celestial Net Sect Master, Luo Zhan, sneered and said, "The Sun Moon Sect is really thick-skinned. Your words are like farts." The Sun Moon Sect Master, Yin Wudao, snorted angrily. The Sun Moon Sect was indeed unreasonable. Yin Wudao couldn't refute the Celestial Net Sect Master's mockery. He vented all his anger on Yixing. Yin Wudao stared at Yixing like a venomous snake. He said coldly, "Brat, do you want to die?" Yixing ignored Yin Wudao. He looked directly at the Yin Master and said, "Yang Ming, remember this. You owe me 10 slaps and 10 sentences. If you don't pay me back today, one day, I will make you pay me back double." Yin Wudao snorted and a terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. He said, "Brat, I'm afraid you won't have that chance." When the cultivators heard this, their hearts skipped a beat. Everyone could understand the meaning behind Yin Wudao's words. In the future, Yixing would definitely not be safe in the Green Cloud region. Hee hee. The Celestial Net Sect Master, Luo Zhan, laughed and said, "Little friend Yixing, if you have any difficulties in the future, don't hesitate to ask me. The Celestial Net Sect will definitely help you." Yin Wudao was a threat to Yixing. On the other hand, Luo Zhan was trying to rope him in. Yixing smiled at Luo Zhan and said, "Thank you, Celestial Net Sect Master." Luo Zhan waved at Yixing and said, "No need to be so polite. Little friend Yixing, the Celestial Net Sect will always welcome you as a guest." Yixing nodded and said, "I will." Luo Zhan nodded at Yixing. Then, he looked at the 4 judges and said, "The 10 sects grand competition has ended. Yixing is first, Yang Ming is second and Luo Lai is third. It's time to give out the rewards." The judges of the Sun Moon Sect and the mysterious Underworld Sect looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with depression. The judge of the Celestial Net Sect was very happy. He had a bright smile on his face. The judge of the Blue Thunder Sect was happy and disappointed. If it were not for the dark horse Yixing, the Thunder Prince of the Blue Thunder Sect would have been third in the 10 sects grand competition and would have been rewarded. Now, he was fourth and had missed out on the rewards. Regardless of whether they were happy or depressed, the rankings of the 10 sects grand competition were clear. The Sun Moon Sect could only follow the rules and could not act shamelessly like before. Soon, the rewards for the top 3 were given out. Yixing was rewarded with 300,000 lower star crystals. Yin Master was rewarded with 200,000 lower star crystals. And Tian Luo Master was rewarded with 100,000 lower star crystals. 300,000 low-grade star crystals was almost equivalent to a small star crystal mine. This was definitely a huge sum of money. Even if Yixing had to hand over half of it to the sect, with 150,000 low-grade star crystals, he was definitely a wealthy person among the martial sages. There will be a new update tonight. Chapter 336. After the 10-sect grand competition ended, the top 10 sects left the old side of the Azure Cloud sect and returned to their respective sections. Not long after they left the old side of the Azure Cloud sect, the sect leader of the Tianluo sect, Luo Zhan, sent 2 enlightened masters to monitor the whereabouts of the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect. Yi Xing had won first place in the 10-sect grand competition and became the top junior genius in the Azure Cloud region. This undoubtedly made the cultivators of the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect unhappy. Luo Zhan had to be on guard. The experts of the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect might harm Yi Xing on the way back to the Falling Star sect. He was only 17 years old and was only a 7-star martial saint. However, he had surpassed the 8-star martial saint Yin Yang young master, who was 21 years old. Regardless of Yi Xing's talent, his current performance was monstrous and had great potential. Yi Xing was already on the opposite side of the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect. This was undoubtedly a good thing for the Tianluo sect. Of course, Luo Zhan would not let Yi Xing be harmed by the people of the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect. As for the battle between the Falling Star sect and the Dongfu sect, it was not good for the Tianluo sect to interfere. In the world of martial artists, there were rules in the world of martial artists. Under the situation that each sect had their own backing, it was taboo for a sect of a higher level to interfere in a battle between sects of the same level. This was because it would immediately expand the scope of the battle and force the backing sect behind the other party to have no choice but to interfere in order to protect their interests. What was originally a battle between low-level sects would evolve into a battle between high-level sections. This was the same principle as the elders not interfering in the battle between the younger generation of the sects, no matter how intense it was. Hence, if the Sun Moon sect and the mysterious underworld sect attacked the Tianluo sect would interfere. If the Dongfu sect attacked the Tianluo sect could only watch from the sidelines and let the two sects fight. Even if Luo Zhan thought highly of Yi Xing and wanted to nurture Yi Xing, he could only protect Yi Xing's life if he interfered. He could not interfere in the survival of the Falling Star sect. Otherwise, it would cause the Sun Moon sect or the mysterious underworld sect to interfere and expand the scope of the battle. The 2 enlightened masters that Luo Zhan sent out followed the Sun Moon sect and the profound underworld sects teams from afar. They didn't notice that anyone from the 2 sects teams had left. Everyone from the Falling Star sect sat on their violet flame monarch eagles and flew towards the Falling Star sect from the old site of the Azure Cloud sect. Yi Xing was, of course, the focus of the group. The strength that he had displayed had indeed astonished everyone. The fact that he had come first in the 10 sects grand competition made the people of the Falling Star sect extremely excited and proud. All the disciples congratulated Yi Xing. Even the elders were full of praises for him. However, for some reason, Yi Xing felt as if there was something stuck in his heart, and he felt a little annoyed. An hour after leaving the old site of the Azure Sky sect, Lu Tianyuan's face suddenly warped in shock, and he exclaimed, "This is bad. The sect is under attack." At this moment, Lu Tianyuan was holding a communication bead in his hand as he received news that his sect was under attack. Hearing this, everyone on the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle's back was shocked. The martial artists present were all from the Falling Star sect. Some were seniors, and some were juniors. The sect being under attack was the most important thing for each of them. Qi Doxing, whose temper had plummeted, immediately roared, "Who is attacking the sect? Is it the Dongfu sect? Kill them all. Burn the bastards of the Dongfu sect to ashes." Several disciples waved their fists and shouted loudly. However, Yi Xing was startled. He suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. It was as if an ice-cold hand had touched him all the way to the bottom. Yi Xing had been paying attention to Lu Tianyuan's expression. He saw that Lu Tianyuan's face suddenly turned pale, and then, it turned gray, full of pain and despair. The enlightened masters and elders obviously noticed the change in Lu Tianyuan's expression and were shocked. The law-enforcing elder Yu Pinghai was so excited that he grabbed Lu Tianyuan's arm and asked, "Sect leader, what happened to the sect?" "Ah!" Lu Tianyuan roared and clenched his fists. Tears filled his eyes as he said, "The sect has been breached. The Grand Elder, the Array Elder, the Martial Pavilion Elder, and the Elixir Pavilion Elder died in battle. The sect has been taken over by the Dongfu sect leader, Watanabe Xiong." Whether it was the enlightened masters or the younger disciples, everyone was petrified on the spot. Lu Tianyuan's words were like a bolt from the blue, ringing in their minds. The sect was breached and taken over by the Dongfu sect? All of this happened too suddenly. Everyone could not believe it. The enlightened masters and elders had just come out of the sect this morning. How could the sect be breached in less than a day? This is impossible. Lin Fengjue, the sect leader, roared in a shrill voice. He was a descendant of the Lin clan. How could he believe that his cousin Lin Fenghua and uncle Lin Shuyuan had both died in battle? Everyone's faces were as pale as Lu Tianyuan's. Moments ago, they had been overjoyed and proud of Yi Xing's achievements. But now, they felt as if they had fallen from heaven to hell, and their hearts were dripping blood. Yi Xing only felt a buzzing sound in his mind. He almost lost his balance and fell. He finally understood why he had been panicking and why he felt suffocated and depressed when he should have been happy. It turned out that he had a feeling that the sect was breached and his master was dead. The figure of his master, Lin Fenghua, appeared in Yi Xing's mind. It was so clear as if he was right in front of him. Lin Fenghua took him in as a disciple in the Star Crystal Mine. Lin Fenghua helped him enter the Fallen Star secret territory in the Fallen Star sect. Lin Fenghua taught him array formation in the Array Elder's mansion. Scenes of the past flashed across Yi Xing's mind. His eyes could not help but moisten. He had never thought that one day, the sect would be attacked and destroyed. Even more so, he had never thought that his master, Lin Fenghua, would die. This news was like a heavy hammer that struck Yi Xing hard. It made Yi Xing experience the cruelty of the martial arts world once again. Yi Xing's eyes burned with anger. The anger in his heart was like a volcanic eruption that rushed up his body. At this moment, the killing intent in Yi Xing's heart was extremely strong. He seemed to have returned to the battlefield in Zishan County. When he saw Yang Yun, Lu Chen, and Wan Xingliang, his three comrades, die in front of him, that monstrous anger burned fiercely in his body. It was as if it wanted to burn everything. Yi Xing could not wait to kill everyone in the Dongfu sect. The aura in Yi Xing's body was affected by the flames of anger. In an instant, it went berserk. It instinctively moved quickly in his body and merged with the invisible flames of anger. His aura became stronger and stronger. Yi Xing's cultivation had already been consolidated at the peak of the 7th-star martial saint realm in the Yama Sea of Flames. However, his state of mind was not complete. Therefore, he could not break through to the 8th-star martial saint realm. Today, Yi Xing had participated in the 10-sect grand tournament and fought fiercely with experts like young master Tian Luo and young master Yin Yang. During the battle, Yi Xing's state of mind had been greatly tempered, causing it to gradually become complete. Now, under the anger of his sect being destroyed and his master's death, the door in Yi Xing's heart was completely blown open by the flames of anger. The flaw in his state of mind that prevented him from increasing his cultivation was instantly burned away by the flames of anger. At this moment, Yi Xing's heart was only left with the desire to become stronger and take revenge. His cultivation surged mightily toward the 8th-star martial saint realm. Almost without any obstruction, Yi Xing broke through the cultivation barrier of the 7-star martial saint realm and broke through to the 8th-star vortex realm in one fell swoop. At this moment, all the martial artists were completely shocked by the news that Lu Tianyuan had said. No one paid attention to the changes in Yi Xing's cultivation. The veins on Qi Dosheng's neck bulged. This sudden cruel news had almost made him go berserk. Qi Dosheng tried hard to control his emotions so that he would not go crazy and go berserk. He roared in a low voice. The Supreme Elder is a 3-star martial sage. How could he die in battle? Unless it was a mid-level martial sage from the 4 northern sects, who could kill him? Also, the Supreme Elder, the Formation Elder, the Martial Pavilion Elder, and my father have all died in battle. What about the Weapon Pavilion Elder and the Sect Affair Hall Elder Li Hongguang? How are they? Did they manage to escape? There was extreme pain in Lu Tianyuan's eyes. Obviously, there was something that he could not believe. It was even more unbelievable than the sect being breached. Lu Tianyuan gritted his teeth and said, Hua Tianshu and Li Hongguang have already betrayed the sect and colluded with the Dongfu sect. The sect was breached, and the two of them are the main culprits. The Dongfu sect's sect master, Watanabe Xiong, has already broken through to the 4-star martial sage. The Supreme Elder died in the hands of Watanabe Xiong. A 4-star martial sage. The eyes of the martial sages and elders suddenly widened. The junior disciples revealed looks of despair. I'm sorry that I couldn't finish 5 chapters today. The plot is at a turning point, and I don't know how to start writing. Secondly, I was angered by that bastard, Aaron Targaryen, in the forum. I'm always easily affected by it. This is wrong. I shouldn't step on the dog when it bites me and then take it to heart. I will correct myself and try not to be affected by this dog in the future. Up until today, the Archer God still lacks 2 chapters. This is very distressing for me. I also want to finish it quickly so that I can release more chapters. Although I've been releasing chapters most of the time, I haven't released for many days. I've been working hard. Since I can finish 49 chapters, then I can be sure that I can finish the last 2 chapters as well. Since I can finish 51 chapters in a little more than a month, then I can be sure that I'll be releasing more than 51 chapters this year. Please give me some time. I'll release more chapters if I don't release more chapters. If you're willing, please give me a vote to support me. If it makes me feel better, then I'll release more chapters. If you're not willing, please read quietly. Don't scold people. This will only disturb my emotions and cause me to release fewer chapters. Lastly, I'm really sorry that I couldn't finish 5 chapters today. I wanted to finish 5 chapters today and ask for monthly votes after I've finished my chapters. Sigh, I don't have the face to ask for votes now. Chapter 337. 3-star sage was already at the peak of the 6 southern sects. A 4-star sage was rare in the southern part of the Azure Sky region. Every 4-star sage had the ability to establish a sect in the southern part of the Azure Sky region. The founding masters of the 6 southern sects were all 4-star sages. Watanabe Xiong had broken through to become a 4-star sage, which meant that he had reached the same level as the founder of the Fallen Star sect. Now that the Fallen Star sect had been breached and lost its barrier, the remaining people couldn't fight against the Dongfu sect. Enforcement Elder Yu Pinghai looked dazed. Hua! Elder Hua! Madam Sect Master! How could she have colluded with the Dongfu sect and betrayed the sect? Everyone was equally shocked, but they didn't dare say it in front of Lu Tianyuan. Lu Tianyuan's expression turned to stone. His eyes were dull and lifeless. This was also a question that he found hard to accept and hard to believe. This morning, Hua Tianshu had told him that she was pregnant with his child, but now she had become a traitor of the Fallen Star sect. She had colluded with the Dongfu sect and attacked the Fallen Star sect. How could Lu Tianyuan accept this? Lu Tianyuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and swayed. Sect Master! Everyone exclaimed. Qi Do Shang supported Lu Tianyuan and said, Overlord, you can't fall now. As long as you're here, the Starfall sect will rise again one day. After spitting out the blood that had accumulated in his heart, Lu Tianyuan felt much better. His eyes regained their vigor. He just couldn't accept it, so he was a little dazed. But as the sect master, how could he fall now that the sect was in danger? Even if he fell, it wouldn't be because of himself, but because of the battle with the enemy. Lu Tianyuan pulled himself together and quickly regained his spirit, suppressing the pain in his heart to the deepest part. Lu Tianyuan said, The Star Crystal Mine is protected by the Formation Elder's Level 3 formation, so it hasn't been destroyed yet. Elder Gu Tianshang is controlling the formation in the Star Crystal Mine, so the Dongfu sect won't be able to take it down in a short time. Let's change our route and head to the Star Crystal Mine. Under Lu Tianyuan's command, the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle changed its direction slightly and flew towards the Star Crystal Lode that Yixing had discovered. When Yixing had discovered the Star Crystal Vein, he had never imagined that the day would come when the Star Crystal Vein would become the Falling Star sect's last bastion. The Purple Flame Monarch Eagle soared through the air, causing the wind to howl. On the eagle's back, the warriors of the Falling Star sect sat quietly. They were all silent, immersed in the grief and resentment of losing their sect and their friends and family. Deep worry could be seen in the depths of Lu Tianyuan's eyes. They were the future of the An. It was still unknown whether or not they would be able to reach the Star Crystal Vein safely. If this group of people was also gone, even if the Falling Star sect still had those people guarding the Star Crystal Vein, it would only exist in name. With those people, there was no chance for the Falling Star sect to rise again. If they wanted the Falling Star sect to rise again, they would need at least one condition. That was, in the future, the Falling Star sect must have a genius who could contend with a 4-star sage. Only then would they be able to lead the Falling Star sect back and rise again. With this thought in mind, Lu Tianyuan's gaze instinctively fell on Yixing. As of now, Yixing was the only genius of the younger generation who had such potential. At this moment, Yixing was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. The aura in his body was circulating. After breaking through the barrier of the 7-star martial saint realm, his cultivation was rising steadily in the 8th-level star vortex realm. He had absorbed too much flame energy in the sea of Yama flames. As his physical body strengthened, he had stored the energy in his flesh and bones. When Yi Xing was a 7-star martial saint, his cultivation was at the peak of the 7th level. The star vortex in his dantian and the meridians in his body had been filled with dense star essence. He could no longer absorb the energy stored in his flesh and bones. Now that he had broken through to the 8-star martial saint realm, Yi Xing's capacity for star essence had increased by a lot. There was also room for improvement in his star vortex. Naturally, he would quickly absorb the flame energy in his flesh and bones to consolidate his cultivation. Furthermore, Yi Xing's state of mind was greatly affected, and he almost went berserk. However, when he adjusted his emotions and suppressed all his anger, unwillingness, and resentment, and turned them into calmness, Yi Xing felt his entire state of mind rising to a higher level. At this moment, his heart was as calm as water. The aura in his body was not controlled by anger and resentment. This was thanks to the powerful superbrain and the black hole astrology in his glabella. Although his heart was calm, it did not mean that Yi Xing was not angry or resentful. It did not mean that Yi Xing did not care about the survival of the sect and the life and death of his master. All these were engraved in Yi Xing's heart. However, he did not lose control of his aura and go berserk because of this madness. Instead, his heart was as calm as a mirror. Everything was engraved in his heart. Once he had the chance, he would eliminate the entire Dongfu sect in one fell swoop. Yi Xing's state of mind was improving. For the first time he could clearly feel the power of his mind. The second level of archery was follow the heart. At this level, the stronger one's heart, the higher one's attainments in archery would be. Yi Xing did not deliberately cultivate or comprehend it. However, his cultivation and archery were rising rapidly. Lu Tianyuan looked at Yi Xing. At first, he did not feel anything. Yi Xing was sitting with his eyes closed. He was very calm and normal. However, when Lu Tianyuan looked at Yi Xing and observed him with his heart, a trace of surprise flashed in his heart. At this moment, Yi Xing's body seemed to be in harmony with the Tao. His entire body was flowing with a trace of Tao rhyme. Astral energy gathered in Lu Tianyuan's eyes as he focused on Yi Xing. Under his careful observation, he could finally see that Yi Xing's cultivation had broken through another level. He had become an 8-star martial saint. Moreover, the Tao rhyme in Yi Xing's body seemed to be related to his mind. Lu Tianyuan was astonished by this. The first level of archery was transformation. The second level was follow the heart. In fact, this could be applied to other martial arts as well. Sword Tao, Saber Tao, Fist Tao. Which one did not emphasize transformation first and then spiritual comprehension later? Astral realm enlightened masters focused on spiritual comprehension when they cultivated martial arts. Only when one's spiritual comprehension was high could they cultivate martial arts to a higher level. The second level of archery, follow the heart, was divided into 9 transformations. This represented the power of spiritual comprehension. It was divided into 9 levels. With each level, when the arrow was shot in the air, it could change direction according to the archer's thoughts. The performance of archery was the change of direction. The performance of other martial arts was the improvement of one's martial arts attainment and the increase of one's martial arts power. When an enlightened master with the power of the spiritual perception performed a perfect stage lower-tier spiritual martial force, its power would definitely be much stronger than a martial saint performing a perfect stage lower-tier spiritual martial force. It was because once the power of the spiritual perception reached a certain level and merged with the martial arts, then the perfect stage martial arts would increase to the transformation stage. When the spiritual martial art reached the transformation realm, spiritual comprehension was the key. Yi Xing was now in the state of spiritual comprehension. Moreover, the Tao rhyme had appeared in the state of spiritual comprehension. This meant that Yi Xing's spiritual comprehension was extraordinary. The reason why Lu Tianyuan was shocked was that even for an enlightened master, the appearance of Tao rhyme during spiritual comprehension was something that could only be encountered but not sought. Compared to this, Yi Xing's cultivation breakthrough to the 8-star martial saint realm did not seem so special. During the 10-sect grand competition, he was still a peak 7-star martial sage. It seems that he had accumulated enough cultivation at that time. What he lacked was the comprehension of his mental state. Now that he is comprehending his mental state will improve and his cultivation will naturally break through. Lu Tianyuan thought for a while and guessed most of Yi Xing's situation. Looking at Yi Xing, who was possessed by the Tao rhyme, Lu Tianyuan's heart revealed a gratified expression. He thought to himself, an 8-star martial saint's spiritual comprehension has reached such a level. I wonder what level he will reach. Such a genius is indeed a god's favored one. The small stage of the green cloud region cannot accommodate him. Perhaps even the true Xian domain is only a small pawn to him. Such a god's favored one should shine in the entire East Divine Continent, or even the Starland. As long as Yi Xing is protected, the falling star sect will not be destroyed. Moreover, there is hope that it will become a super force that dominates a region. Chapter 338. Lu Tianyuan was right to be worried. They were intercepted when they were still 10,000 miles away from the Star Crystal Mine. Dongfu sect was not the only one who intercepted the Falling Star sect. Flying Cloud sect, Holy Wind sect, and Blood Ghost sect each had 2 perfected masters. There was also a 3-star perfected master from Sun Moon sect. Dongfu sect had 5 perfected masters, Flying Cloud sect, Holy Wind sect, and Blood Ghost sect each had 2 perfected masters, and Sun Moon sect had 1 perfected master. There were 12 perfected masters in total. Among them, there were 2 3-star perfected masters, Grand Elder Dubian Tan and Sun Moon sect's Qi Zhua. There were 5 2-star perfected masters, 2 from Dongfu sect, and 1 each from Flying Cloud sect, Holy Wind sect, and Blood Ghost sect. There were 5 1-star perfected masters, the same as the 2-star perfected masters. Everyone from the Falling Star sect was shocked. There were only 6 perfected masters on the Falling Star sect's side. Moreover, among the 6 enlightened masters of the none of them was a 3-star enlightened master. There were only 3 2-star enlightened masters: Sect Master Lu Tianyuan, War Pavilion Elder Qi Dosheng, and Law Enforcement Elder Yu Pinghai. Lin Fengjue, Tang Yuntian, and Wei Yang were all 1-star perfected masters. As for the 10 younger disciples, although they were the most elite of the younger generation of the none of them was an immortal, and none of them was even a 9-star martial saint. In this battle, they were of no use at all, and could even be said to be a burden. Comparing the two, it was obvious that the difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth. Even with Yi Xing's Fire Cloud Lion, the difference could not be reversed. The Purple Flame Monarch Eagle felt threatened. The feathers on its neck stood up, and it looked fierce. Under Lu Tianyuan's command, the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle landed on a hill. Dongfu sect also had level 3 demonic beasts as mounts. If they fought in the air, the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle would not be able to take care of so many people on its back. Lu Tianyuan asked everyone to go down, but he stopped Yi Xing, sect leader. Yi Xing looked at Lu Tianyuan. Yi Xing, you are the hope of our sect. The Purple Flame Monarch Eagle will take you out. What you need to do is to survive. As long as you are here, so is the Falling Star sect. As he spoke, Lu Tianyuan took off his storage ring and stuffed it into Yi Xing's hand. Yi Xing knew about this ring. It was a keepsake belonging to the sect master of the Falling Star sect. It had the sect master symbol on it. Furthermore, this headmaster's ring was a middle-grade storage ring. Its space was much larger than a low-grade storage ring. Just this point alone made it 100 times more valuable than a low-grade storage ring. The people who had yet to get off the eagle's back were all startled. Lu Tianyuan had given the sect leader's ring to Yi Xing, which was equivalent to passing the position of sect leader to Yi Xing. Moreover, from Lu Tianyuan's words, everyone could tell that Lu Tianyuan wanted to give the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle to Yi Xing alone, so that he could bring Yi Xing out of the encirclement. As for the rest, they could only fight to the death with the enemy. With such a great disparity in strength, this was a battle to the death. Among the younger disciples, a few of them immediately fell to the ground. If they stayed, they would die without a doubt. Sect Master, the younger disciples here are all the elites of our sect. How can we only protect Yi Xing and abandon them all? The law enforcement elder immediately objected. He said, the 6 of us are perfected beings. If we stay and fight to the death, we will have no regrets even if we die. However, they are the future of our sect. We must protect them all. Lu Tianyuan's eyes were filled with struggle. But soon, he revealed a ruthless expression. With each extra person, the purple flame monarch eagle will have to send out more energy to protect them, and it will slow down a bit. Only by protecting Yixing will we have the highest chance of getting out of here. If everyone is safe, then none of us will be able to get out. Even the purple flame monarch eagle will die here. Then, our sect will have no chance to rise again, and will be completely wiped out. Yixing's heart was bleeding. Even though he was calm and did not go berserk, he could not stop his blood from boiling. At this moment, everyone was going to fight to the death, but he was the only one who could escape on the purple flame monarch eagle. How could he be afraid of death? If he could control his blood, he would rather stay and fight to the death with the sect master and the others. However, his mind was calm. He was not affected by his blood. Rationally, he knew that he could not stay. He had to try his best to escape. If he stayed, he would definitely die. He would only be fulfilling the enemy's wish. This was the result that the enemy wanted to see the falling star sect completely destroyed. There would be no chance for them to rise again. If he could escape, then he would be the hope for the falling star sect to rise again. He would become the enemy's nightmare and make them unable to eat or sleep in peace. Lu Tianyuan was right. As long as Yixing was alive, the falling star sect would still exist. Therefore, Yixing had to stay alive. At this moment, Yixing could not say anything. Letting the other disciples die here while he escaped on the purple flame monarch eagle was in the interest of the sect. However, he did not have the right to let others die for him. Yixing only looked at Lu Tianyuan with determination in his eyes. Lu Tianyuan nodded with a gratified look on his face. He saw the answer in Yixing's eyes. The sect master is right. If Yixing doesn't make it out alive, the falling star sect will no longer have a chance to rise again. We have to do our best to let the purple flame monarch eagle carry Yixing and escape. Only if Yixing escapes this calamity will our deaths not be in vain. Qi Dosheng said loudly. Then, he came to Qi Jingyang and jumped off the purple flame monarch eagle's back. Qi Dosheng patted Qi Jingyang's shoulder and said, "I'm sorry, son. I can't save your life today. The blood of the Qi clan flows in our veins. Don't be afraid of death. Today we will live and die together. Even if you disappoint me in terms of cultivation, you are still a good man of the Qi clan." "Father, I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. Get me out. Let the purple flame monarch eagle get me out." At this moment, Qi Jingyang was scared out of his wits. How could he still be hot-blooded? He hugged Qi Dosheng's leg and cried. "Sigh." Qi Dosheng shook his head and sighed. Disappointment flashed in his eyes again. His face was ashen. No matter how Qi Jingyang begged, his expression did not change at all. In order to let Yixing escape, Qi Dosheng even brought his own son off the eagle's back. The rest of the disciples were unwilling, but they knew that there was nothing they could do. They dispiritedly got off the eagle's back. Yixing also let the fire cloud lion get off the eagle's back. Soon, only Yixing was left on the purple flame monarch eagle's back. Beside the purple flame monarch eagle, Lu Tianyuan patted Ma Ren's shoulder and said, "Ranter, your talent is not bad either. Do you blame me for being cruel?" Ma Ren shook his head and said with determination, "Master, I understand. If I were in your position, I would make the same decision. The fallen star sect cannot be destroyed like this. There must be hope. I believe in Yixing. He will definitely rebuild the fallen star sect and bring it to greater heights. Even if I die, I will watch from above and watch Yixing take revenge for the fallen star sect." At the end of his sentence, Ma Ren's gaze had already shifted to Yixing. In fact, his words were also directed at Yixing. "Yixing, don't disappoint us and die with everlasting regret." Ma Ren looked at Yixing and said. The few enlightened masters and elders all looked at Yixing with hopeful eyes. Yixing clenched his right fist and said, "As long as I am here, so will the fallen star sect. One day, I will make all the enemies of the fallen star sect, no matter which sect they are from, disappear from the world. I will make the fallen star sect the #1 sect in the Green Cloud region." This was Yixing's promise. Lu Tianyuan's pupils suddenly dilated. He had heard some hidden meaning from Yixing's words. Becoming the #1 sect in the Green Cloud region meant that the fallen star sect would surpass the northern 4 sects in the future. And this was not something that could be achieved with words. However, since Yixing had said it, It was definitely not a lie. This meant that Yi Xing already had a martial technique that could surpass the northern four sects. A complete upper-tier martial technique of the Fallen Star technique? Or an upper-tier martial technique of the Fallen Star technique? Lu Tianyuan realized that Yi Xing's gains in the Fallen Star secret territory were definitely not as simple as what Yi Xing had revealed. Lu Tianyuan was the lord of the Fallen Star sect. Therefore, when Yi Xing said this, he immediately thought from the lord's point of view and realized this possibility. The others did not react in time. Lu Tianyuan looked at Yi Xing with a questioning gaze. The moment their eyes met, they seemed to have a tacit understanding. Yi Xing nodded. Chapter 339. Watanabe Tan's laughter came from the front. He was standing on the head of the four-winged flying snake, looking at the falling star sect with a smile. Watanabe Tan said loudly, "Little Lu, are you done with your funeral arrangements? Unfortunately, it's useless. Today is the day of your falling star sect's destruction. Everyone in your falling star sect will die." Ha 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 ha. The four-winged flying snake landed 1,000 meters away from the purple flame monarch eagle. Watanabe Tan continued to stand on the four-winged flying snake's head. The other four enlightened masters of the Dongfu sect stood in a row on either side of the four-winged flying snake. The two enlightened masters of the wind sect stood on the left, the two enlightened masters of the blood ghost sect on the right, and the two enlightened masters of the flying cloud sect at the back. They were 1,000 meters away from the surrounding them from four directions. As for the Sun Moon sect's three enlightened master Qi Zhua, he stood on a mountain peak a few miles away, looking down at the falling star sect's people. It seemed that he didn't plan to fight. Watanabe Tan and the other enlightened masters, plus the four-winged flying snake, were enough to deal with the falling star sect's 6 enlightened masters, 1 fire cloud lion, 1 purple flame monarch eagle, and 10 junior disciples. After all, the Sun Moon sect was one of the 4 northern sects. They were 1 level higher than the 6 southern sects. If he were to make a move, it would be hard to avoid rumors that the Sun Moon sect was bullying the falling star sect. It would damage the Sun Moon sect's reputation. The Sun Moon sect didn't send him here to participate in the battle. Instead, they wanted him to be a spectator and witness the destruction of the meteor sect. Of the 6 southern sects, the flying cloud sect had changed sides, the falling star sect had been destroyed, and the spirit moon sect was not worth mentioning under the pressure of the east supporting sect, the wind sect, the blood ghost sect, and the flying cloud sect. As long as the Sun Moon sect controlled the east supporting sect, the wind sect, the blood ghost sect, and the flying cloud sect, it would be equivalent to controlling the southern part of the Blue Cloud Mountain range. This was a strategy that had been planned long ago. They had been waiting for the day of the 10 sects grand competition. And while the enlightened masters of the falling star sect were in 2 different places, they would attack separately and destroy the falling star sect. On the hillside, Lu Tianyuan's eyes were burning with anger. He wanted to rush up to Watanabe Tan and cut all the Dongfuzong Zhenren into meat paste. However, this was clearly impossible. Lu Tianyuan could only restrain his anger and shouted, "Everything the Dongfu sect has given to the falling star sect will be returned 100-fold one day." Watanabe Tan sneered, "After today, the falling star sect will be removed from the list. Ha ha! Only death awaits you. Go in peace. However, the heavens are virtuous, and my Dongfu sect is merciful. I will give you a chance. Those who surrender will not die, and those who resist will be killed without mercy. We of the falling star sect are all iron-blooded men. We will die standing up, not live kneeling. Bring it on. If I can kill one of you, it'll be worth it. If you want to kill us, you'll have to see blood." "That's right," the enforcement elder Yu Pinghai yelled. After hearing Yu Pinghai's words, the people of the falling star sect became spirited, and the blood in their bodies began to boil. Yu Pinghai circulated his astral energy to the limit, erupting with a terrifying aura. The strength of a 2-star enlightened being was fully unleashed. A middle-grade spiritual spear appeared in Yu Pinghai's hand, increasing his aura. Yu Pinghai roared, "I'll kill you all." In the next moment, the spiritual weapon spear in Yu Pinghai's hand emitted a dazzling light. He stabbed out with his strongest attack. Most of the martial artists of the falling star sect thought that Yu Pinghai was going to kill the people of the Dongfu sect, but they were wrong. The spear radiance pierced through the air, stabbing towards the purple flame monarch eagle's throat. Yu Pinghai had actually launched a sneak attack on the purple flame monarch eagle. The purple flame monarch eagle clearly did not expect that someone would launch a sneak attack on it. Shock flashed through its eyes as it let out a sharp cry and quickly retreated. However, Yu Pinghai's attack was too sudden. Even though the purple flame monarch eagle was comparable to a 3-star enlightened being, it could not dodge this unexpected attack. Yu Pinghai, what are you doing? The enlightened being elders were shocked. Qi Dosheng was even more furious. If the purple flame monarch eagle was injured by Yu Pinghai, then how could they escape with Yi Xing? This was simply destroying the falling star sect's hope of making a comeback. Unfortunately, Qi Dosheng and the others did not expect that Yu Pinghai would attack the purple flame monarch eagle after his righteous words. It was too late to stop him. However, not everyone did not expect this. Boom! As soon as Yu Pinghai attacked with his spear, the enlightened being elders cried out in surprise. Lu Tianyuan seemed to be prepared. He channeled the celestial essence in his body, and a layer of lightning appeared on his body. He performed the purple lightning thunder fist and punched towards Yu Pinghai. The purple lightning thunder fist was a middle-grade spiritual martial art. However, Lu Tianyuan had already trained it to perfection. Its power was no weaker than an upper-grade spiritual martial art at initial success. The power of his punch was earth-shattering. A purple fist aura flashed across the void in an instant. Bang! Before Yu Pinghai's spear could hit the purple flame monarch eagle, Lu Tianyuan's punch hit him directly. After all, Lu Tianyuan was closer to Yu Pinghai than Yu Pinghai was to the purple flame monarch eagle. The purple lightning thunder fist was known for its speed. With the purple lightning thunder fist, Lu Tianyuan could defeat enlightened beings of the same level. He could even compete with enlightened being 3-star. This punch hit Yu Pinghai's back. How terrifying would the damage be? Puff! Yu Pinghai immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell forward and his spear attack towards the purple flame monarch eagle was broken. In the distance, Watanabe Tan's pupils shrank. He wanted to help, but it was too late. Lu Tianyuan appeared next to Yu Pinghai in a flash. With the purple lightning thunder fist in his hand, he grabbed Yu Pinghai by the neck and lifted him up. Yu Pinghai was severely injured, and his internal organs had been ruptured. Now that the purple astral lightning had invaded his body, it rampaged through his meridians and destroyed them, making it impossible for him to circulate his astral energy. He was powerless against Lu Tianyuan. Everyone from the Falling Star sect heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Lu Tianyuan in shock. They did not know how Lu Tianyuan knew what Yu Pinghai was going to do. Lu Tianyuan raised Yu Pinghai in front of him and said coldly, "Speak. Why did you betray the sect and become the East-supporting sect's dog?" Yu Pinghai's mouth was filled with blood. His eyes were filled with unwillingness and confusion. He said, "How did you know what I was going to do?" Yu Pinghai's original plan was to stab the purple flame monarch eagle when it least expected it to escape. After stabbing the purple flame monarch eagle, he would immediately leave the Falling Star Sect's group. The Falling Star Sect's group was surrounded on all sides, so once he left, he would be safe. However, before he could stab the purple flame monarch eagle, he was hit by Lu Tianyuan's fist. All of his plans were ruined. Now that he was in Lu Tianyuan's hands, only death awaited him. How could he not accept this? At the same time, Yu Pinghai was also puzzled. How did Lu Tianyuan know what he was going to do? Lu Tianyuan stared at Yu Pinghai with sharp eyes. The sect was destroyed because there was a traitor who colluded with the East supporting sect. Otherwise, with the array elder controlling the sect's array, Watanabe Xiong would not be able to break into the sect even if he was a 4-star enlightened being. Since there is a traitor in the sect, the chances of there being a traitor around me is also very high. Ever since I received the news of the sect being destroyed, I have been observing who exactly is the traitor around me. Although you have hidden very well, there are still many flaws. First, you purposely mentioned Hua Tianshu to provoke me. Second, the purple flame monarch eagle had the highest chance of escaping with Yi Xing. But you stopped it. Third, Watanabe Tan wanted us to surrender. Did you need to speak so righteously to stabilize everyone's belief? Don't you think you've gone too far? You have good reasons for these 3 points, but I only talk about the result. The result you want is not in line with the position of the Falling Star sect. If there is a traitor around me, who else could it be but you? Yu Pinghai smiled bitterly. I see. I should have kept quiet. The more I show, the easier it will be to expose myself. The Falling Star sect has been destroyed. You hate traitors to the core. Now that I am in your hands, you will not let me live no matter what. Lu Tianyuan said. It's good that you know. He. Yu Pinghai knew that he was going to die. There was no hope for him to survive. He threw the fear of death to the back of his mind and laughed. You want to know why I betrayed you? If it wasn't for that slut Hua Tianshu who seduced me, how could I have ended up like this? But your wife is really slutty. Die! Lu Tianyuan roared furiously, twisting Yu Pinghai's mind in an instant. Chapter 340. Watanabe Tan was unfazed by Yu Pinghai's death. Yu Pinghai used to be an elder of the Fallen Star sect. Now that he had betrayed the Dongfu sect, it was impossible for him to be put in an important position. Watanabe Tan only felt that it was a pity that the Dongfu sect would lose a good fighter. After all, a 2-star perfected being was rare in the southern part of the Qingyun region. The Fallen Star sect only had 6 perfected beings. Now that they had a traitor, a 2-star perfected being at that, the Fallen Star sect's strength was greatly reduced. The gap in strength between the two sides widened again. Yi Xing, we'll open a gap for the Purple Flame Eagle. You just have to hold on to its feathers and don't fall off its back. It'll take you to the Star Crystal Mine. The future of the Fallen Star sect depends on you. Lu Tianyuan didn't lose control of his anger after killing Yu Pinghai. Instead, he calmed down quickly and sent a message to Yi Xing. As the sect master, Lu Tianyuan was undoubtedly outstanding. The fall of the Fallen Star sect wasn't his fault. Unfortunately, his wife, Hua Tianshu, was from the Dongfu sect. She had been a spy in the Fallen Star sect since he was a baby and had ruined everything for him. Who would have thought that the Dongfu sect had purposely arranged for an outer elder to pick up an abandoned baby when he was adventuring in the North Four sects? Yi Xing nodded at Lu Tianyuan. He could understand the pain in Lu Tianyuan's heart. Don't worry, sect master. It won't be long. I'll use that bitch's blood as a sacrifice to the souls of the Fallen Star sect. Watanabe Tan's voice came from afar again. What I said just now still counts. Those who surrender will be spared. I'll give you 10 breaths of time. Those who don't surrender will be killed. In the world of martial artists were a kind of resource. In fact, killing the people of the Fallen Star sect was far less beneficial than having them surrender and serve the Dongfu sect in the future. Martial artists would lose everything if they died. As long as they were alive, they could still create benefits. 10. Watanabe Tan began to count. Sect leader, I beg you, please let us live. Watanabe Tan had just started counting when Qi Jingyang and Wu Chungang knelt down at the same time, kowtowing to Lu Tianyuan and begging for mercy. You unfilial son, you dare to surrender to the East Fu sect and become their slave? I'll kill you right now. Qi Dosheng roared furiously when he saw that Qi Jingyang was begging for mercy in order to surrender to the East Fu zone. Qi Jingyang just kowtowed to Lu Tianyuan, ignoring Qi Dosheng's curses. Sect leader, please let us live. After Qi Jingyang and Wu Chungang begged for mercy, Li Yuanqing and the other disciples also knelt down and begged for mercy. Lu Tianyuan looked at them coldly and sighed. You're still young. If you're really afraid of death, then surrender. I won't blame you. Thank you, sect master. Thank you, sect master. Everyone was overjoyed, as if they had just been pardoned. They got up and ran towards the Dongfu sect cultivators. Qi Jingyang was the first to run. Qi Dosheng raised his arm and condensed a thick astral energy in his palm. He glared fiercely at Qi Jingyang, so angry that he really wanted to rush up and slap his son to death. The Qi clan had always had an irreconcilable enmity with the East Fu sect. Qi Dosheng's grandfather, Qi Zhantian, had died saving Lin Shuyuan more than 100 years ago. Moreover, Qi Zhantian was only one of the Qi clan cultivators who had fallen. There were many Qi clan cultivators who weren't as famous as Qi Zhantian who had also died in the Falling Star sect's calamity. Not long ago, Qi Dosheng's father, Qi Jinchao, an elder of the Dan Pavilion of the had died in the battle. Qi Jinchao was not the only one who had died. There were many other warriors of the Qi clan who had died in the battle. Many more warriors of the Qi clan had died in the hands of the Dongfu sect. Now, Qi Dosheng wanted to fight to the death with the East Fu sect, but his son was kneeling and kowtowing, surrendering to the East Fu sect. This made Qi Doxing extremely angry. However, Qi Jingyang was his son after all. Qi Doxing's hands trembled as he watched Qi Jingyang leave. In the end, he couldn't do it. Qi Jingyang, Li Yuanqing, Wu Changgang. A total of 6 Falling Star sect disciples had surrendered to the East Fu sect and came to the East Fu sect. Apart from Yi Xing, there were only 3 disciples, including Ma Ren, who stayed behind to live and die with the sect. 3, 2, 1. Watanabe Tan counted to 1 and waved to Qi Jingyang and the others who had surrendered. Good, this old man will keep his word. Stand aside and watch the fate of those who resisted. Watanabe Tan's eyes flashed with terrifying killing intent. Just as he was about to give the order to attack, the Sun Moon sect's 3-star sage, Qishua's voice came from afar. Yi Xing, I'll give you a chance. Enter the Sun Moon sect and you'll survive. You'll also become the focus of the Sun Moon sect. Although Qishua didn't go to the old side of the Azure Sky sect to watch the 10 sects grand tournament, he received a message from the Sun Moon sect's sect master, Yin Wudao. Yi Xing's potential was indeed extraordinary. If he could enter the Sun Moon sect, Yin Wudao would let bygones be bygones and nurture him with all his might. Watanabe Tan was stunned. He was certain that the East Fu sect's disciples had been wiped out because of Yi Xing. He hated Yi Xing to the bone and had to kill him. However, if Yi Xing became a disciple of the Sun Moon sect, the East Fu sect would never be able to take revenge. Moreover, if Yi Xing survived, the East Fu sect would face a great calamity in the future. If the Sun Moon sect chose Yi Xing, it meant that they could give up on the East Fu sect. Clearly, Yi Xing's potential made the Sun Moon sect feel that he was more valuable than the entire East Fu sect and the entire southern region. Watanabe Tan stared at Yi Xing, his heart thumping. At this moment, Yi Xing's decision would affect the future of the East Fu sect. Yi Xing's gaze landed on the 3-star spiritual master, Qizhua, who was a few miles away. Qizhua was also looking at him from afar, waiting for his answer. Yi Xing said, "If you let the people of the Falling Star sect leave safely, I'll agree to join the Sun Moon sect." Qizhua said from afar, "I'm saving your life. How dare you talk about conditions?" Yi Xing looked away, ignoring Qizhua. After a while, Qizhua snorted and said, "Since you're willing to join the Sun Moon sect, you shouldn't be disloyal. The Falling Star sect can no longer exist. They must die." Yi Xing also snorted and said, "If you can't save the lives of the Falling Star sect warriors, what right do you have for me to join the Sun Moon sect?" Qizhua said, "If you had suggested that the Sun Moon sect help you rebuild the Falling Star sect before you would join the Sun Moon sect, I might have believed you a little. That would mean that you were willing to join the Sun Moon sect. However, you only want them to live. Once they leave alive, you will definitely betray the Sun Moon sect in the future. Since that is the case, it is better for you to die." Watanabe Tan and the other spiritual masters who were attacking the Falling Star sect let out a sigh of relief. They were really afraid that Yi Xing would join the Sun Moon sect. Watanabe Tan's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He waved his hand and said, Kill them all." Other than Watanabe Tan, the other 10 spiritual masters all attacked at this moment. They performed all kinds of upper spiritual martial skills and attacked the people of the Falling Star sect. When a spiritual master attacked, it was terrifying. It was easy to destroy mountains. When 10 spiritual masters attacked at the same time, it was even more shocking. Lu Tianyuan's body started to burn. He knew that there was a huge difference in strength between the two sides, so he directly burned his astral energy. The other 4 spiritual masters also burned their astral energy and used their own astrological aspects. Lu Tianyuan shouted, "Stop them. Brother Eagle, run." The dazzling astral energy collided in the void, creating a deafening explosion. The void was shaking, and the earth was cracking. Lu Tianyuan, Qi Doxing, and the other 5 spiritual masters of the Falling Star sect all spat out blood. Even though Watanabe Tan had not attacked, the combined attack of the 10 spiritual masters was much more powerful than them. However, although Lu Tianyuan and the others were injured, they managed to block the attacks of the 10 spiritual masters with the power of the burning astral energy. Whoosh! Seizing this opportunity, the purple flame monarch eagle soared into the sky. With a flap of its wings, it carried Yi Xing away at a rapid speed. Do you think you can escape? Watanabe Tan shouted. The four-winged flying snake under his feet had already targeted the purple flame monarch eagle. At the same time, it soared into the sky and charged toward the purple flame monarch eagle. On the back of the purple flame monarch eagle, Yixing's eyes were suddenly covered with a layer of mist. He performed the eyes of blue cloud and looked at the four-winged flying snake. Chapter 341. The Eye of Blue Cloud had the greatest effect on monster beasts. Yixing's Eye of Blue Cloud could already affect the thoughts of beginner third-tier monsters, which were equivalent to beginner perfected ones. His state of mind had been elevated, and his entire body was enveloped in the aura of humanity. His body and Tao had become one, and his attainments in the Eye of Blue Cloud had increased significantly. In the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, Yixing had successfully controlled the Fire Cloud Lion Leader, which was equivalent to a 2-star perfected ones. Now, Yixing's attainments in the Eye of Blue Cloud had reached a new level, and the four-winged flying snake under Watanabe Tan was only equivalent to a 3-star perfected ones, and a beginner third-tier monster at that. How could it resist the attack of the Eye of Blue Cloud? Hiss! In the blink of an eye, cloud-like vortexes appeared in the four-winged flying snake's eyes. It was instantly confused, and with a sharp hiss, its body flung violently. Watanabe Tan, who was standing on the four-winged flying snake's head, did not expect the snake to suddenly attack him, and his body was thrown 1,000 meters away. Hiss! The four-winged flying snake hissed again, baring its venomous fangs and looking ferocious. Its four wings flapped fiercely, and the four-winged flying snake shot through the air like an arrow, rushing toward Watanabe Tan. Whoosh! The four-winged flying snake opened its mouth, and a water arrow pierced through the air, attacking Watanabe Tan. The four-winged flying snake's sudden change in allegiance was beyond Watanabe Tan's expectations. However, Tan Watanabe's strength as a 3-star spiritual master was not to be underestimated. Even though he was in a hurry, he reacted in an instant. He operated his star gang and struck out with his palm, blocking the water arrow that the four-winged flying snake had launched. The four-winged flying snake came with a ferocious momentum. Although Watanabe Tan blocked the water arrow, it was not easy for him, and he hurriedly retreated. He had not noticed Yixing's eyes earlier, and was extremely shocked by the four-winged flying snake's sudden madness. With the four-winged flying snake attacking him, Watanabe Tan did not have the time to chase after Yixing. However, the purple flame monarch eagle did not slow down, and like a beam of light, it flew rapidly into the distance, rushing out of the encirclement in the blink of an eye. Lu Tianyuan, Qi Dosheng, and the other perfected masters saw that Yixing had succeeded in breaking out of the encirclement. Even though they were all injured and vomiting blood, their eyes were filled with joy. However, no one noticed that a bow and arrow had suddenly appeared in the hands of Reverend 3-star Qi Zhua on the mountain peak several miles away. The bow was a treasured bow, and the arrow was a treasured arrow. Light radiated in all directions, resplendent and dazzling. In an instant, Qi Zhua knocked an arrow and pulled the bow into a full moon, pointing the arrow at the purple flame monarch eagle. When the bow and arrow were raised, the sharp aura instantly shot out in all directions, causing the spiritual masters who were fighting fiercely a few kilometers away to be startled. A layer of cold sweat appeared on their backs. All the enlightened masters looked at Qi Zhua, who was several miles away. When they saw the bow in Qi Zhua's hand, the 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect were shocked. A high-grade spiritual bow. The bow in Qi Zhua's hand was actually a high-grade spirit bow, and the arrows were also shining with treasure light. It was not much different from a treasure bow, and could be compared to a mid-grade spirit weapon. If such a bow was shot by a Reverend 3-star, how terrifying would its power be? A perfected master of the same level would definitely not be able to block it. If Qi Zhua's attainments in archery were high, even a Reverend 4-star would be in danger under the attack of his arrows. Whoosh! The arrow left the bow and instantly streaked across the void, shooting 7 to 8 miles away. In the blink of an eye, the arrow caught up with the purple flame monarch eagle. The arrow contained extremely terrifying power. The purple flame monarch eagle's protective demonic power could not block it at all, and its huge body could not dodge it. The arrow instantly shot into the purple flame monarch eagle's body. Boom! The arrow's power was extremely terrifying. It exploded in the purple flame monarch eagle's body, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The purple flame monarch eagle let out a mournful cry. Its body trembled violently in the air, and it could no longer maintain its stability. It fell unsteadily to the ground. No! Lu Tianyuan and the other perfected masters of the Falling Star sect instantly turned pale as they cried out in alarm. It's over! It's completely over! Lu Tianyuan and the other four were instantly filled with despair. The purple flame monarch eagle was severely injured, and it could not even fly. There was no way it could escape with Yi Xing. How could Yi Xing escape from the pursuit of a perfected master by himself? If Yi Xing died, the Falling Star sect would have no hope of rising again. At this moment, Lu Tianyuan and the other four were filled with despair. The perfected masters who surrounded Lu Tianyuan and the other four were also looking at the purple flame monarch eagle in the distance, and they all laughed sinisterly. Yi Xing's potential was heaven-defying. If he escaped, they would not be able to live in peace in the future. Only when Yi Xing died would they be able to eliminate the source of trouble. Although the Falling Star sect still had the last bit of star crystal mine, it would be difficult for them to achieve great things without outstanding juniors. It would be destroyed sooner or later. However, just as Lu Tianyuan and the other four were in despair and the other perfected masters were rejoicing, a ray of light suddenly flashed across the back of the purple flame monarch eagle. This ray of light was as fast as an arrow piercing through the sky. Even the astral realm perfected masters present could not see it clearly. They could only see a blurry shadow. They could only judge from the blurry shadow that it was a pair of wings, and it was a flying spiritual tool. There was no way to judge the grade of the flying spiritual tool. However, from the speed of the flying spiritual tool, it was at least a high-grade flying spiritual tool. Flying spiritual tools were very rare. In the Azure Sky region, even low-grade and mid-grade flying spiritual tools were rare. This was because there were no blacksmiths in the Azure Sky region that could make flying spiritual tools. If one wanted a flying spiritual tool, they would have to find it in the primordial ruins or buy it in the bustling cities of the True Xian domain. There were not many materials that could be used to make flying spiritual tools, but there were many martial artists who wanted one. Therefore, once a flying spiritual tool was put on sale, it would be sold out immediately. Therefore, even if one went to the bustling cities of the True Xian domain, it would be difficult to buy a flying spiritual tool. In the Azure Sky region, a mid-grade flying spiritual tool was a rare treasure. In terms of value, it could be compared to a high-grade spiritual weapon. After all, once an perfected master had a flying spiritual tool, as long as his astral energy was not depleted, he could fly continuously in the sky. A mid-grade flying spiritual tool could greatly increase the flying speed of an perfected master. A mid-grade flying spiritual tool was already so valuable, let alone a high-grade flying spiritual tool. In the entire True Xian domain, a high-grade flying spiritual tool was a rare treasure. There were only a few perfected masters who owned one. Of course, no one would have thought that Yi Xing's Azure Sky Wings was a grade higher than a high-grade flying spiritual tool. It was a supreme-grade flying spiritual tool. Regardless of the attributes that the Azure Sky Wings could upgrade, just the value of a supreme-grade flying spiritual tool had already surpassed all spiritual weapons. Even the venerables of the 9 high sects would dream of owning one. In terms of value, a supreme-grade flying spiritual tool could be compared to a legendary profound weapon. Yi Xing pushed the Azure Sky Wings with all his strength. His speed was too fast. In the blink of an eye, he was several miles away. In another blink of an eye, he was 10 miles away. Qi Zhuo was 7 to 8 miles away from the purple flame monarch eagle. When he shot an arrow at the purple flame monarch eagle, he thought that Yi Xing would have no chance of escaping and would definitely die. Who knew that? Yi Xing actually had a flying spiritual tool, and his speed was much faster than the purple flame monarch eagle's. He flew out of Qi Zhuo's arrow range in an instant. Qi Zhuo was stunned on the spot. The smiles on the faces of the perfected masters of the Dongfu sect, Divine Wind sect, Blood Spectre sect, and Flying Cloud sect froze as they looked at each other. As for the 5 perfected masters of their despair turned into joy as they revealed gratified smiles on their faces. At this moment, they all breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Yi Xing escaped, they would have no regrets even if they died in battle. Who has a flying spiritual tool? Chase after him quickly. We can't let this kid escape. Hurry up and chase after him. In the distance, Qi Zhuo stood on the peak of the mountain and shouted furiously. Yi Xing's current speed was faster than the flying demonic beasts. Even the four-winged flying snake would have a hard time catching up with him. Moreover, the four-winged flying snake was affected by Yi Xing's azure sky eyes and attacked Watanabe Tan fiercely. In the fierce battle, it had been injured by Watanabe Tan. Now that Yi Xing was far away, the four-winged flying snake regained its consciousness and did not resist Watanabe Tan's attack. Moreover, it was seriously injured by Watanabe Tan. It had no strength to chase after Yi Xing. Therefore, if they wanted to chase after Yi Xing, only perfected masters who also had flying spiritual tools had a chance. Yun Zhanfei of the Flying Cloud sect, chase after him. We must bring back that kid's head. A one-star perfected master of the Flying Cloud sect shouted. In an instant, a pair of wings appeared on his back. He spread his wings and flew, turning into a stream of light to chase after Yi Xing. Chapter 342. Yun Zhanfei, a one-star enlightened being, was the cousin of the Flying Cloud sect's leader, Yun Zhanfei. 30 years ago, Yun Zhanfei had broken through to the astral realm and became an enlightened being. He left the Green Cloud region to explore the True Xian domain and returned a few years later. During this period of time, Yun Zhanfei's greatest gain was the middle-grade air transportation spiritual weapon he had found in an ancient ruin. Of course, this middle-tier flying spiritual tool was not discovered by Yun Zhanfei alone. It was discovered by his two one-star enlightened being friends. After discovering this middle-grade flying spirit tool, Yun Zhanfei decisively launched a sneak attack. He killed his two friends and obtained this middle-grade flying spirit tool alone. After that, he returned to the Flying Cloud sect and rarely left the sect since then. After returning to the Flying Cloud sect, Yun Zhanfei rarely used the middle-tier flying spiritual tool. At least, he never used it when there were other people around. Even the Flying Cloud sect's enlightened being did not know that he had a middle-tier flying spiritual tool. If it was not for Yi Xing's heaven-defying potential, Yun Zhanfei would not have exposed that he had a middle-tier flying spiritual tool. However, he had to kill Yi Xing no matter what. Moreover, Yi Xing had a flying spiritual weapon that was at least of high grade. Killing Yi Xing would not only prevent future troubles, but he could also obtain a rare treasure. Of course, Yun Zhanfei had to kill Yi Xing even if he had to expose his medium-grade flying spiritual weapon. Yun Zhanfei made up his mind. After killing Yi Xing, he would not return to the Flying Cloud sect but leave the Green Cloud region. Otherwise, he would not be able to keep the high-tier flying spiritual tool and the Flying Cloud sect would not be able to keep it. It would definitely be taken away by the Sun Moon sect. After leaving the Green Cloud region, he could go to the 9 great sects to trade. Even the 9 great sects' esteemed beings rarely had a high-tier flying spiritual tool. He could use the high-tier flying spiritual tool to trade for other treasures. For example, treasures that could increase his cultivation. Treasures that could increase an enlightened being's cultivation were definitely priceless. However, the value of a high-tier flying spiritual tool was no less than a supreme-tier spiritual tool. It was enough to trade for treasures that could increase an enlightened being's cultivation. Although a high-grade air transportation spiritual artifact was fast, it also consumed a lot of energy. How long could an 8-star martial saint last? Yun Zhanfei had a smile on his face. He was extremely happy in his heart. His gaze locked onto Yi Xing who was flying at high speed in the distance. He circulated his astral energy and flapped his wings continuously, increasing his speed to the limit as he chased after Yi Xing. Yi Xing, you must escape. You must. Lu Tianyuan prayed silently in his heart. Suddenly, his hair stood on end. He looked over at Qizhua, who was several kilometers away, and saw that Qizhua had knocked another arrow on his high-grade spirit bow and had locked onto him. Qizhua was furious that Yi Xing had escaped from Qizhua's hands. Although he had not attacked the perfected persons of the Falling Star sect due to his status, he was now venting his anger on them. Yi Xing knew that an enlightened master was chasing after him from behind. Pushing the celestial essence within his body to the limit, he desperately flapped his blue cloud wings and flew away at top speed. In the blink of an eye, he had flown a few kilometers. In another blink of an eye, he had flown 10 kilometers. In about 20 breaths, he had flown 100 kilometers away. As a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact, the blue cloud wing's speed was indeed extraordinary. Even though Yi Xing's current cultivation was far from being able to display the true speed of the blue cloud wings, His speed was still faster than Yun Zhanfei, a one-star enlightened master, who was flying with a middle-grade air transportation spiritual artifact. This caused Yun Zhanfei, who was chasing after Yi Xing, to be extremely surprised. This was because even though he was flying at top speed, the distance between him and Yi Xing was still increasing. How is this possible? An 8-star martial saint, even if he is flying with a high-grade air transportation spiritual artifact, can't be faster than me. Yun Zhanfei was deeply shocked. His eyes were filled with confusion. For a moment, he did not think that it was a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact. He really did not dare to imagine that an 8-star martial saint would have a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact. After 200 breaths, the two of them had flown for more than 1,000 kilometers. The distance between them had increased from the initial 10 kilometers to dozens of kilometers. Damn it! Damn it! Yun Zhanfei cursed as he chased after Su Mo. He was almost burning his astral energy as he flew, but he still could not shorten the distance between them. Suddenly, Yun Zhanfei's heart jolted and he was shocked. Could this lad's air transportation spiritual artifact be a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact? Yun Zhanfei did not dare to think about it before. Now that he thought about it, he immediately reacted. Perhaps this was the only reason why Yi Xing's speed was so fast. If it is a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact, this is a real peerless treasure. It is comparable to the legendary dark weapon that only the honorable martial artists are qualified to own. When Yun Zhanfei thought of this, his heart immediately became excited, and his heart thumped. If I can obtain a supreme-grade flying spiritual weapon and sell it, won't I become one of the richest perfected persons in the True Xian region? At that time, what kind of treasures can't I buy? Yun Zhanfei became even more excited. The only pity was that the speed of the top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact was too fast. Even in the hands of an 8-star martial saint, Yi Xing's flying speed was faster than Yun Zhanfei's middle-grade air transportation spiritual artifact. The distance between them was already dozens of miles. Although the view in the sky was wide and it was very difficult for Yi Xing to rely on obstacles to block Yun Zhanfei's vision to escape, if the distance between them was further, no matter how high they flew, there would still be many blind spots. Yi Xing could really use the obstacles in the mountains, valleys, and forests to escape from Yun Zhankong's pursuit. Yun Zhanfei was excited and anxious at the same time. He was afraid that Yi Xing would escape from under his nose. Compared to Yun Zhanfei, Yi Xing was even more anxious. As a top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact, the clear sky wings were fast enough. However, Yi Xing's cultivation was too low and he could not unleash the true speed of the clear sky wings. Moreover, Yi Xing's consumption of his celestial essence was too great. If he continued to fly like this, he was afraid that it would not be long before Yun Zhankong caught up with him, and he would die of exhaustion due to the exhaustion of his celestial essence. In order to last longer, Yi Xing had to adjust the circulation of celestial essence in his body to reduce the consumption of his celestial essence. However, his flying speed also decreased. Behind Yi Xing, Yun Zhanfei's eyes suddenly brightened. A sage's sense of distance was extremely sensitive. When Yi Xing's speed slowed down, he immediately felt it. The distance between the two of them did not continue to increase. Instead, it was gradually decreasing. Haha! This kid finally can't hold on anymore. A mere 8-star martial saint wants to keep driving the top-grade air transportation spiritual artifact. It's simply wishful thinking. Today, I have a big harvest. Yun Zhanfei was overjoyed. Yi Xing controlled the consumption of his celestial essence within a bearable range, but his speed was still slower than Yun Zhanfei's. The distance between the two gradually decreased. When the distance between the two reached its initial length, they had already flown more than 2,000 miles. Yi Xing suddenly changed his direction. He no longer continued to fly forward, but fell down. Like a meteor falling, Yi Xing quickly landed on a mountain peak. In the end, he couldn't escape. He might as well fight with the enemy while he still had the strength. Otherwise, if he kept flying, his strength would be greatly consumed, and he couldn't get rid of the enemy. In the end, he could only quickly capture the enemy. Wuxia starlight rushed out from Yi Xing's glabella, turning into a huge flaming star suspended in the air. Yi Xing's eyes were firm. At this moment, there was nothing to say. No matter what method he used, He had to kill the enemy. Even if he had to expose all his trump cards, he would not stop. If he couldn't kill the enemy, there would only be one result, and that was his death. If he was going to lose his life, he naturally had to use all his trump cards. Everything would be to kill the enemy. Of course, he had to use his trump cards at the right time. He couldn't expose them all at the beginning. Although Yi Xing had broken through to the 8-star martial saint realm, his strength had increased a lot compared to when he was a 7-star martial saint. He didn't care about any half-step enlightened masters. However, a Star Dipper enlightened master was far from a half-step enlightened master. Even a 1-star enlightened master was a strong threat to his life. When dealing with an enemy who was far stronger than him, he couldn't erupt his strength to the limit at the beginning. He had to first paralyze the enemy and then find an opportunity to deal a fatal blow. Yi Xing instantly took out the purple firmament bow and purple gold arrow. He used the Azure Dragon arrow style and shot an arrow at Yun Zhanfei, who was rushing toward him. Chapter 343. The arrow pierced through the air. It turned into a huge azure dragon and roared as it charged toward Yun Zhanfei. This arrow contained the power of the fire astral form, the power of the celestial origin, and the power of the heart of archery. Coupled with the greater mastery of the Azure Dragon arrow style, its power was terrifying. Even without using the Sagittarius constellation, it was more than enough to kill a half-step perfected person. The arrow pierced through the air and shot out a few miles in the blink of an eye. It collided with Yun Zhanfei, who was flying toward it. However, this arrow did not hurt Yun Zhanfei at all. Yun Zhanfei circulated his astral energy and stretched out his hand to grab the arrow that was flying toward him. His hand was like an iron clamp. The purple gold arrow was caught in his hand. The tail of the arrow was shaking, but it could not move forward anymore. A perfected person in the astral realm would have converted all of their celestial origin into astral energy. A half-step perfected person would only have 50% astral energy. There was a huge difference between 50% astral energy and 100% astral energy. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. This arrow was enough to kill a half-step perfected person, but it was caught by Yun Zhanfei easily. If a martial saint was someone who had just stepped onto the path of martial arts, then a perfected person would be an expert in the path of martial arts. There was a huge gap between a martial saint and a perfected person. It was like the gap between a martial saint and an ordinary martial artist. Moreover, a martial saint was afraid of being surrounded by ordinary martial artists. A 1-star martial saint had a high chance of dying when surrounded by a large number of ordinary martial artists. A perfected person was a high-end combat power. A martial artist could not win with numbers. Even if 100 9-star martial saints worked together, they would not be a match for a 1-star perfected person. In front of a 1-star perfected person, even a half-step perfected person would not be able to withstand a single blow. It did not matter if there were 10 of them or dozens of them. If you wanted to kill them, it would be like chopping vegetables. Your archery skills are not bad. You can kill a half-step perfected person. Unfortunately, you cannot withstand a single blow from a real perfected person. Yun Zhanfei snorted and threw the arrow away. Then, he pressed his palm down from the sky toward Yi Xing. Die, kid! The arrow was instantly thrown several hundred meters away by Yun Zhanfei. Yi Xing did not pay attention to the arrow that Yun Zhanfei threw out. Instead, he focused on the palm strike that came from the sky. The speed of Yun Zhanfei's descent from the sky was already fast enough, but the astral light from the palm strike was even faster. The surging celestial essence condensed into a palm-shaped astral light, which instantly grew in size until it was more than 10 feet tall and several feet wide. It was like a boulder the size of a house. Under the pressure of the palm, the airflow in the air started to distort. The airflow splashed in all directions, and the wind blades were as sharp as knives. One could see how terrifying the power of this palm was. What was even faster than the energy palm was the wind generated by the palm strike. While the palm strike was still in the air, the ground was already stirred up by the wind. Sand and pebbles were sent flying. Yi Xing felt as though an invisible mountain was pressing down on him. Heavenly Bat Steps. Yi Xing used the wind force of the minute subtlety realm and executed the Heavenly Bat Steps. He took a step forward and his body turned into a stream of light, disappearing in a flash. With the Heavenly Bat Steps at the perfection realm and the wind force of the minute subtlety realm, it was extremely fast. It was as if he had teleported. In terms of speed, Yi Xing was not inferior to a perfected being of the astral realm. Bang! Yun Zhanfei's palm strike missed and hit the ground where Yi Xing had just stood. A loud explosion rang out, causing the earth to shake. The ground was instantly shattered. The ground where the palm strike hit caved in, forming a deep palm print that was the same size as the palm strike. The mud and stones turned into dust under this palm strike. If Yi Xing had been hit, even if his body was stronger than any martial saint, he would have been seriously injured. Any martial saint would have been smashed into meat paste under this palm strike, regardless of whether it was one or several of them. Yi Xing stood a few hundred meters away with a look of horror in his eyes. Even though he had dodged the attack, he still felt a lingering fear from the power of the attack. The attacking power of a perfected being was terrifying. Yi Xing was no match for him in a head-on confrontation. Yun Zhanfei landed on the ground and stood beside the palm print. His gaze was like a sword as it shot toward Yi Xing. His aura locked onto Yi Xing. Although he had not made a move yet, Yi Xing already felt as if his body was being cut by a sharp blade. Yi Xing's body was so strong that ordinary weapons could not penetrate it. However, Yun Zhanfei's gaze was stronger than any weapon, causing Yi Xing to feel threatened. Yun Zhanfei looked excited, but his gaze was filled with disdain. He said, "Your speed has surprised me. It is even faster than many perfected beings. Unfortunately, it is still not enough for me." As he spoke, Yun Zhanfei raised his hand and a dazzling sword appeared in his hand. It was a top-notch middle spiritual weapon. No wonder Yun Zhanfei's gaze was so sharp. It turned out that he was a swordsman. With the spiritual weapon in his hand, Yun Zhanfei's aura surged. He was like a sword. Just his terrifying aura alone was enough to cut the surrounding air into pieces. "Die!" Yun Zhanfei shouted. In an instant, his entire body was like a flash of sword radiance as he charged toward Yi Xing. It was the sword step. Young Master Tian Luo's sword aura was strong enough and his sword step was fast enough. However, compared to Yun Zhanfei, he was still a few levels behind. Sword radiance flashed. To Yun Zhanfei, the distance of a few hundred meters was nothing. With a swing of his sword, a sword aura rose like the rising sun. It was unstoppable and it was about to hit Yi Xing fast. Too fast. Yi Xing did not even have time to dodge. He could only use the flame aura fist and punch out. Under the cover of the flame astral phenomenon, Yi Xing's flame astral energy surged and formed a flame aura fist in an instant. Although Yi Xing was not a perfected being, his attack was the same as a perfected being. It was Gang Qi and not Qi radiance. However, Yi Xing's fist aura could not be compared to the sword aura of Yun Zhanfei, a one-star perfected being. With a swoosh, the fist aura was cut in half by the sword aura. In the blink of an eye, the fist aura dissipated and turned into air currents that splashed to both sides. However, the sword aura did not lose its momentum and it hit Yi Xing's fist hard. They were both using the Sword of the Rising Sun from the middle stage changing sword technique. However, Yun Zhanfei was much more powerful than Yun Feng in terms of sword techniques and cultivation. Sparks flew everywhere. Instantly, Yi Xing spat out a mouthful of blood. Like a cannonball, his body shot backward and landed 100 meters away. Fortunately, he wore the burning flame gloves and blocked the sharpness of the sword aura. Otherwise, wherever the sword aura passed, not only his fist, but also Yi Xing's entire arm would have been cut in half. Upper stage spiritual weapon gloves. Yun Zhanfei's eyes lit up and he looked even more excited. As a one-star perfected being, the most precious item he had was a middle-stage flying spiritual weapon. Its value was on par with an upper-stage spiritual weapon. However, he did not have a real upper-stage spiritual weapon. However, Yi Xing, an 8-star martial saint, had first revealed that he had a supreme flying spiritual weapon. Now, he had revealed that he had an upper-stage spiritual weapon gloves. This had made Yun Zhanfei surprised and happy. He had treated Yi Xing as a huge treasure vault. Kill this kid and all his treasures will be mine. All mine. Haha. Yun Zhanfei could not help but laugh wildly. His aura surged and his sword aura pierced the sky. However, at this moment, the heavens and the earth suddenly darkened. Everywhere was shrouded in darkness and one could not even see their own fingers. Yi Xing had used the black hole astrology. Both he and Yun Zhanfei were shrouded in darkness, and they had entered the dark world created by the black hole astrology. Yun Zhanfei was shocked and he stopped laughing. In an instant, he put up a defensive sword aura and raised his spirits. He looked around and realized that he could not see anything. There was only darkness. However, when he looked at the sky, he saw a huge black hole maelstrom spinning slowly in the sky. The black hole maelstrom was huge and its center was as black as ink. It was daunting and seemed to lead to another world. What is going on? Why did the sky suddenly turn dark? It should still be early before the sky turns dark. Yun Zhanfei was bewildered. He looked at the black hole maelstrom in the sky and a thought flashed through his mind. He was even more shocked. Could this be that kid's astrology? However, he has the flame astrology. How can he have two astrology? Yun Zhanfei quickly found the flame astrology beside the black hole maelstrom. It was also high in the sky but was pushed to the corner by the black hole maelstrom. Therefore, it did not look eye-catching. When Yun Zhanfei saw the flame astrology, he was finally sure that the black hole maelstrom was Yixing's astrology. Chapter 344. Yun Zhanfei's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly recalled the time 9 months ago when the sun was shining brightly but the sky suddenly turned dark. The feeling back then was exactly the same as it was now. Could it be that the sky turned dark back then was also caused by Yixing's astrology? Yun Zhanfei was extremely shocked. At that time, he was in the flying cloud sect, which was tens of thousands of miles away from the falling star sect. How could Yixing's astrology cause the sky to turn dark from tens of thousands of miles away? Moreover, Yun Zhanfei was not the only one who felt the sky turning dark back then. The other martial artists in the flying cloud sect also felt it. Yun Zhanfei immediately raised his guard. Yixing's black hole astrology made him feel terrified and alarmed. Whoosh! A ray of starlight shot out from between Yun Zhanfei's eyebrows and turned into a golden star that floated in the sky. The golden star shone brightly and tore apart the darkness around Yun Zhanfei, causing everything within a 100-meter radius to be covered in golden light. As an astral realm enlightened being, Yun Zhanfei had an absolute advantage over Yixing in terms of cultivation. Therefore, his astrology could break apart the world of darkness created by the black hole astrology. However, Yun Zhanfei's suppression of Yixing's cultivation was limited. The golden star could not break apart the world of darkness completely. It could only illuminate the area within a 100-meter radius. For Yun Zhanfei, being able to see the area within a 100-meter radius was already enough. It was much better than being blinded by darkness. As soon as Yun Zhanfei's golden star tore apart the darkness, Yixing took out the purple firmament bow and shot out an arrow. Whoosh! The arrow pierced through the air. A few 100 meters was not a distance at all. As soon as it left the bow, it was already in front of Yun Zhanfei, aiming straight for his throat. Hee hee! Yun Zhanfei sneered and waved his spiritual weapon. A ray of sword energy flashed and knocked the arrow away. He said disdainfully, "Weak archery." Whoosh! As he spoke, Yun Zhanfei swung his sword. A sword light instantly broke through the air currents and shot towards Yixing. Even though Yun Zhanfei's range of vision was limited and he couldn't see Yixing's exact location, as a real person, Yun Zhanfei's senses were extremely sharp. The moment Yixing shot the arrow, Yun Zhanfei was able to determine Yixing's location. At the same time, Yun Zhanfei also used his sword steps. His entire body was like a shining sharp blade. In a flash, he appeared where Yixing was standing just now. The sword energy sliced through the void, and the golden stars shone in all directions. Yun Zhanfei's counterattack was extremely fierce. With his strength, even if his opponent was also a one-star enlightened master, he could easily crush most of them. As a sword Dao expert, Yun Zhanfei's strength was definitely top-notch among one-star enlightened masters. However, Yun Zhanfei's lightning-fast counterattack missed. Not only did Yixing circulate the Heavenly Bat Steps technique at the consummate level, he also used the Azure Cloud Wings, causing his speed to reach an astonishing level. In an instant, he had retreated several miles away. Whoosh! Another ray of starlight shot out from between Yixing's eyebrows. It turned into a giant starlight bow in the sky. Yixing used the Sagittarius constellation and finally revealed his trump card. He was going to shoot his strongest arrow at Yun Zhanfei. The grand momentum of wind, fire, and darkness. Yi Xing used the three grand forces of heaven and earth and merged them into the arrow. At the same time, there was also the terrifying Sagittarius constellation's star power and the power of his archery attainment. It made the arrow's power even more terrifying. Yi Xing's current archery attainment was almost catching up with his master, Xianxia. Moreover, he had the Sagittarius constellation, so the arrow he shot was only stronger than Xianxia's. Just like how Xianxia killed the Dong Fuzong enlightened master, Yi Xing also circulated the azure cloud eyes when he shot the arrow. Instantly, two clouds whirlpools appeared in his eyes. Xianxia's azure cloud eyes only cultivated the upper part of the azure cloud eyes. On the other hand, Yi Xing's azure cloud eyes was a complete extreme-grade spiritual martial art. Other than the azure cloud eyes, he also cultivated the cloud eyes. Naturally, Yi Xing's azure cloud eyes had a greater effect on the target's thinking. In terms of archery power and eye technique, Yi Xing had already surpassed his master, Xianxia. If Yi Xing's opponent was Watanabe Ing, his arrow would definitely kill him. However, Yi Xing's opponent was not Watanabe Ing. They were both one-star enlightened masters. Yun Zhanfei was an expert in the sword Dao and his strength was at the top level. On the other hand, Watanabe Ing was only an ordinary one-star martial saint. Their strengths were not at the same level. Just as the clouds whirlpools appeared in Yun Zhanfei's eyes, two rays of sword light suddenly flashed and his eyes instantly became clear again. A powerful swordsman had a heart as firm as a mountain. He had an unshakable will and his mind was unshakable. Unless Yi Xing's strength was able to completely suppress Yun Zhanfei, he would not be able to use his azure cloud eyes to suppress Yun Zhanfei's will. However, it was obviously impossible now. Yun Zhanfei had already blocked two of Yi Xing's arrows. He did not think highly of Yi Xing's archery skills. During the battle, he did not notice that in the sky, another Sagittarius constellation had appeared beside the black hole constellation. Facing Yi Xing's arrow, Yun Zhanfei revealed a disdainful smile. He did not dodge or even retreat. Instead, he moved forward and waved the spiritual weapon in his hand to meet the arrow. Useless! Yun Zhanfei's voice was filled with disdain. He originally wanted to say, useless archery skills. However, he had obviously underestimated the power of the arrow. Before he could finish his words, a crisp sound rang out. The spiritual weapon was instantly deflected and the spiritual weapon was instantly deflected. However, the power of the arrow was still extremely terrifying. It continued to shoot towards Yun Zhanfei's throat. Yun Zhanfei's expression changed drastically. His hair stood on end and he felt a chill on his back. If the arrow pierced through his throat, Yun Zhanfei would definitely die. Ah! Yun Zhanfei let out a loud roar. It was not a scream that came from being shot by the arrow. At this moment, his essence, qi, and spirit merged as one. The star energy in his body burned and the middle-grade flying spiritual weapon flapped on his back. In an instant, his speed had reached its limit. With a loud roar, Yun Zhanfei's body turned into a shadow. In an instant, he had dashed a few miles away. The arrow had hit his neck. However, it only hit the edge of his neck and caused a line of blood. It did not hit the vital part of his throat. At this moment, Yun Zhanfei's burst of speed was extremely fast. He managed to dodge this sure-kill arrow. However, he was not out of danger yet. With a thought, Yi Xing changed the direction of the arrow and continued to shoot towards Yun Zhanfei. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Yun Zhanfei's gang qi was extremely thick. When he felt the sharp aura behind him, he knew that the danger was still there. In an instant, he changed the direction of the arrow 3 times. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The arrow moved according to the thought. Yi Xing's arrow also changed 3 times in the air. Yun Zhanfei had used up all his gang qi, but he was still unable to dodge the attack of the arrow. In the blink of an eye, the arrow had caught up with Yun Zhanfei's body and shot into his back. 3 changes according to the thought. Yi Xing's state of mind had been upgraded. His mental strength had increased and he had reached the same level as his master, Xianxia. Moreover, this was only the initial upgrade. With the addition of Yi Xing's Taoist connotation, there were still many comprehensions that he had not digested yet. If he was given a period of time, He would only need 10 days to half a month to digest all the comprehensions and use them for his own use. Regardless of whether it was his martial arts attainment or the level of his mental strength, there would be more improvements. The arrow contained an extremely terrifying force. After it had shot into Yun Zhanfei's body, it exploded instantly. The terrifying force was almost like a cannonball exploding. If a martial sage had been hit by Yi Xing's arrow, his body would have definitely been torn apart by the force contained in the arrow. Although a perfected person's physical body was not much stronger than a martial sage's, the quality of the astral energy in his body was extremely high. When the astral energy was locked, it would be tougher than an ordinary spiritual weapon. When the terrifying force exploded in Yun Zhanfei's body, it did not explode him into pieces. Instead, it had firmly pierced into his back. Of course, the terrifying force contained in the arrow had caused great damage to Yun Zhanfei. Although his body was protected by the astral energy, the place where the arrow had hit had his internal organs shattered and his meridians severed. The place where the arrow had hit was not far away from his heart. Due to the impact of the arrow, his heart had also been damaged. This was almost a fatal injury. Yun Zhanfei spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was as pale as ash. Yun Zhanfei raised his head and saw the Sagittarius constellation in the sky. His eyes were filled with unwillingness as he said, "So you still have a trick up your sleeve? You are actually a monster who possesses 3 types of astral energy. I hate you. I hate you. Will my monthly votes exceed 100 today? I'm looking forward to it." Chapter 345. With Yun Zhanfei's strength, if he had not underestimated Yi Xing and had gone all out, he would have had an 80 to 90% chance of blocking that arrow. The arrow just now was Yi Xing's strongest attack. If it had been blocked by Yun Zhanfei, Yi Xing would have had no chance to turn the situation around. He would most likely have lost this battle. This was not a duel in a grand competition. This was a battle of life and death. Losing meant death. Yun Zhanfei was severely injured after being hit by the arrow. His body was in excruciating pain, and he could not circulate the astral energy in many parts of his body. His strength had been reduced by half. The outcome of this battle had been decided. Yun Zhanfei would definitely die. As a perfected 1-star cultivator, Yun Zhanfei should have been the winner of this battle of life and death. However, because he had underestimated Yi Xing, he had sent himself to the path of death. Yun Zhanfei's heart was filled with unwillingness. Yi Xing drew his bow again and shouted coldly, "Go to hell!" Swoosh! The arrow left the bowstring and the dragon roared. It was the Azure Dragon arrow style again. Yun Zhanfei had unleashed his strength to the limit. Let's die together. Yun Zhanfei knew that he was going to die. He immediately burned all the astral energy in his body. He was overdrawing his life force to increase his strength. Swoosh! A ray of sword light pierced through the void. Yun Zhanfei's entire body was shining brightly. He faced the arrow and rushed toward Yi Xing. With a clink, the sword energy and the arrow collided. The Azure Dragon's shadow dissipated. The purple-gold arrow turned into a ray of cold light and shot into the distance. Yun Zhanfei was burning his astral energy and life force to increase his strength. Not only did it make up for the loss of strength due to his severe injuries, but it also made his strength stronger than usual. When a perfected one went all out, it was extremely terrifying. This was especially true for Yun Zhanfei, who was one of the top perfected ones in the same realm. At this moment, Yun Zhanfei could defeat anyone in the same realm. Even a perfected 1-star cultivator would have to avoid him. The azure cloud wings flapped and Yi Xing retreated explosively. At this moment, Yun Zhanfei's perception had reached an unheard of level. He could sense the airflow and sound that Yi Xing created as he moved through the void. Even if he couldn't see Yi Xing, he could still lock onto Yi Xing's body. At this moment, both Yun Zhanfei's strength and speed had increased by a level after burning his life force. The distance between him and Yi Xing was rapidly closing. Die! Scorching sun in the sky! Yun Zhanfei was bleeding from his 7 orifices, but he had a crazed expression on his face. The spirit artifact sword in his hand shone even more resplendently. It was like a scorching sun, making it hard for people to look at it directly. In an instant, he caught up to Yi Xing and thrust his sword at him. The golden constellation in the sky poured down an endless amount of astral power, which was absorbed by Yun Zhanfei's sword. This was the strongest sword strike of his sublimated life force. After this sword strike, whether his target lived or died, Yun Zhanfei would die. This sort of terrifying attack that erupted without regard for one's life was the most terrifying. Even someone with similar strength might perish together with it. As he drew back, Yi Xing put away his bow and took out the high-grade spirit artifact, the Black Dragon Spear. If Yun Zhanfei were still conscious, he would be shocked once more. Yi Xing actually had 2 high-grade spirit artifacts on him. However, Yun Zhanfei had already gone mad and his mind was no longer clear. There was only a single thought in his mind, and that was to kill Yi Xing and perish together with him. As for the Black Dragon Spear in Yi Xing's hand, he completely ignored it. Darkness Spear Curtain. With the Black Dragon Spear in hand, Yi Xing focused his mind like never before. His might erupted to the limit as he used a defensive spear move. The Black Dragon Spear danced about, turning into a curtain of spears that collided with Yun Zhanfei's sword. Bang! With a loud explosion, the Darkness Spear curtain was instantly torn apart. With a puff, Yi Xing spat out a mouthful of blood. Yun Zhanfei's spirit artifact continued to erupt with a dazzling light as it thrust forwards. However, Yi Xing's figure was nowhere to be seen. Yi Xing had already clearly scanned this sword's trajectory, weakness, and flaws. As he used the Darkness Spear curtain to resist, he had already dodged to a safe area. Yi Xing's speed erupted with incredible speed. Although Yun Zhanfei's mutual destruction sword strike had wounded Yi Xing, it hadn't caused any fatal injuries to Yi Xing. Whoosh! Yi Xing's blue cloud wings flapped. In the blink of an eye, he had crossed several miles. Yun Zhanfei's sword missed. With a loud roar, he slashed out with his sword again, chasing after Yi Xing. However, just as this sword thrust out, he spat out a mouthful of blood. He could no longer withstand the burning astral energy within his body, causing his life to rapidly fade away. Bang! The burning astral energy within Yun Zhanfei's body went out of control and exploded, causing his body to explode into pieces. The sword light instantly disappeared. With a clank, the spirit artifact sword was thrown forward and fell to the ground. A few miles away, Yi Xing stopped. He retracted his astrology and slapped his chest. A mouthful of blood spurted out. His body went limp and he sat on the ground, panting heavily. This battle was extremely dangerous for Yi Xing. If Yun Zhanfei hadn't looked down on him, an 8-star martial saint, and hadn't used his full strength during the battle with Yi Xing's arrow might not have been able to injure him. The result could have been reversed. The one who died might have been Yi Xing. Moreover, if Yun Zhanfei wasn't just a 1-star martial saint, if he was a 2-star martial saint, Yi Xing would have died in this battle. Luckily, the one who chased after me wasn't a 2-star martial saint. Luckily, Yun Zhanfei was conceited and looked down on me. Yi Xing rejoiced in his heart. After taking a healing elixir, Yi Xing immediately took out 2 low-grade star crystals to heal his injuries and restore his celestial essence. Yi Xing's injuries weren't serious and he recovered quickly. However, his celestial essence recovery was slower. It would take him at least half an hour to fully recover. He didn't dare to stay here for half an hour. The other party had a Class 3 flying demonic beast, and it wouldn't take long for it to catch up. After Yi Xing recovered from his injuries, he got up and walked towards Yun Zhanfei's corpse. Middle-grade spirit artifact sword. Middle-grade flying spirit artifact. Yi Xing picked up all of them, including Yun Zhanfei's storage ring. The first thing Yi Xing did was to refine Yun Zhanfei's middle-grade flying spirit artifact. The owner of the middle-grade flying spirit artifact was dead, so refining it wasn't difficult. After about 20 breaths, Yi Xing refined the middle-grade flying spirit artifact and put it into his body. His celestial essence surged, and a pair of black wings appeared on Yi Xing's back in an instant. Very good. The Clear Sky Wings is a top-grade flying spirit artifact, but it consumes too much energy for me. I can't fly for a long time, so I can only use it when escaping. This middle-grade flying spirit artifact is just right for me. I'll give it a name, Black Feather Wings. The Clear Sky Wings is too precious. If exposed, even the masters of the 9 great sects would covet it. I can't let others know about it. It's better to use the Black Feather Wings at ordinary times. Yi Xing secretly said in his heart. Yi Xing used his starfire to burn Yun Zhanfei's corpse to ashes. He then tore his blood-stained clothes and threw them on the ground, pretending that he was dead. Then, he took out a set of clothes from his storage ring and put them on. With a flap of the black feather wings, he instantly soared into the sky. Shortly after Yi Xing left, the four-winged flying snake arrived with Qizhua, Tan Watanabe, and the other enlightened masters. There should have been 12 of them. Excluding Yun Zhanfei, who was chasing after Yi Xing, there were still 11 of them. However, there were only 9 of them on the four-winged flying snake and 2 enlightened masters were missing. When enlightened masters fought with their lives on the line, they could unleash extraordinary combat strength by burning their astral energies and overdrafting their life force. Even though Tan Watanabe had more enlightened masters on his side and was stronger, they had to pay a huge price to kill the 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect. Lu Tianyuan and Qi Doxing had dragged an enlightened master of the Dongfu sect down with them before their deaths. Although the other 3 did not manage to kill their targets, they were severely injured. The 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect were dead while the other party had 2 dead and 3 injured. Although it seemed like the number of casualties was unequal, it was extremely difficult to cause casualties in a situation where there was a huge disparity in strength. Of course, if not for Qijua's arrows from afar, the casualties would have been much higher. However, Qijua's arrows were too powerful. Even enlightened masters of the same cultivation realm could not withstand them, let alone those below 3 enlightened masters. Because of Qijua's arrows from afar, the 5 enlightened masters of the Falling Star sect had no hope of escaping even if they managed to break out of the encirclement. They could only fight to the death. The enlightened masters jumped off the four-winged flying snake's back and observed the traces of the battle. There were bloodstains, burning ashes, and Yi Xing's blood-stained clothes. Yi Xing is dead. Where's Yun Zhanfei? Why didn't he join us? Did he want to take the superior-grade air transportation spiritual artifact for himself and run away? To make up for yesterday's second update. Looking for recommendations on Monday. Chapter 346. The Flying Cloud sect was in great trouble. Yi Xing and Yun Zhanfei fought, but no one thought that the one who died was Yun Zhanfei. The true sages thought that the person who was burned to ashes was Yi Xing. As for Yun Zhanfei, he had snatched away Yi Xing's treasures and wanted to take them all for himself, thus he had run away. On Yi Xing's body, there was not only a high-grade flying spirit artifact, but also a high-grade spirit artifact, the Blazing Flame Set and the Black Dragon Spear. These were all items that had been revealed at the 10-sect Grand Competition. Moreover, as for the four-winged flying snake's madness, no one had been able to react at first. But as they thought about it, they realized that Yi Xing must have obtained the top-grade spirit weapon, the Eye of Blue Cloud, in the Blue Cloud Ancient Land. Thus, he was able to interfere with the thoughts of monster beasts. The Eye of Blue Cloud was a top-grade spirit weapon. In the Blue Cloud region, it was a priceless treasure. If so many treasures were obtained by Yun Zhanfei, then as the true sages thought about it, no matter who obtained these treasures, there was no reason for them to be shared with others. Thus, it made sense for Yun Zhanfei to take all the treasures and run away. This was what the true sages thought. Although they understood Yun Zhanfei's feelings, if they were in his shoes, they would also do the same. But the true sages were unhappy. Extremely unhappy. As they thought about how so many treasures had been taken away by Yun Zhanfei, the true sages hated Yun Zhanfei to the bone. Poor Yun Zhanfei. Even after his death, he was hated by everyone. However, Yun Zhanfei's initial thought was to take all the treasures and run away. The true sages didn't wrong him. However, no one expected that Yun Zhanfei, a 1-star true sages, would chase down Yi Xing, an 8-star martial saint, and in the end die under Yi Xing's hands. An 8-star martial saint killing a 1-star true sages? Moreover, he was a top-class 1-star true sages? Of the 9 true sages present, not a single one of them had this thought. Occasionally, this thought would flash through their minds, but they would immediately reject it. If Yun Zhanfei hadn't caught up with Yi Xing, then it would be possible. But if he had caught up with Yi Xing and fought with him, then Yi Xing would have absolutely no reason to escape. The enlightened masters were certain that the dead person was Yi Xing, and they were certain that Yun Zhanfei had taken all the treasures for himself and escaped. Because of their hatred for Yun Zhanfei, All the spiritual masters were filled with anger towards the other spiritual master of the Flying Cloud sect. Cho Buahong was a 2-star sage of the Flying Cloud sect. He had a high position in the Flying Cloud sect, and his position was comparable to the sect master Yun Zhongkong. He was one of the top 3 powerhouses in the Flying Cloud sect. However, at this moment, Cho Buahong's back was drenched in cold sweat. Qi Zhua, Watanabe Tan, and the rest of the 8 perfected masters were glaring at him angrily, causing his hair to stand on end. Cho Buahong cursed Yun Zhanfei 1,000 times in his heart. Yun Zhanfei had taken so many treasures for himself, he would definitely not return to the Flying Cloud sect. However, if these people could not find Yun Zhanfei, the Flying Cloud sect would have to take the blame for Yun Zhanfei. Cho Buahong said with fear. Everyone, Yun Zhanfei was only blinded by the treasures for a moment, and his mind was muddled. He will return, he will definitely return, and our Flying Cloud sect will also find him and make him hand over the treasures so that we can divide them equally. Cho Buahong was afraid that the 8 spiritual masters would vent their anger on him. If they were to make a move on him, he would be reduced to ashes in an instant. Qi Zhua's face was very ugly. He was a spiritual master of the Sun Moon sect. If Yun Zhanfei took out Yi Xing's treasures and distributed them, the Sun Moon sect would get the best things. However, Qi Zhua did not even get a single thing. Even the Falling Star sect's sect master's ring, Lu Tianyuan had already given it to Yi Xing. It could be seen that Yun Zhanfei had it as well. Qi Zhua looked at Cho Buahong coldly and said, Everyone, listen up. Put Yun Zhanfei on the wanted list in the entire Qingyun region. If he hands over the treasures, everything will be fine. Otherwise, the Flying Cloud sect will pay the price. Kunyan Mountain Range. Star Crystal Vein. Yi Xing used the black featherwings to fly all the way here. After reporting his identity, Gu Tianshang opened the array and Yi Xing entered. There were multiple level 3 arrays set up by Lin Fenghua here. It was the last fortress of the Falling Star sect. Of the 14 spiritual masters of the 6 went to the old site of the Azure Cloud sect, 6 stayed in the sect, and 2 guarded the Star Crystal Vein. This was the last strength of the Falling Star sect. The 2 spiritual masters guarding the Star Crystal Vein were both 1-star spiritual masters. They were the War Pavilion Elder Lin Dongsheng and the Affairs Hall Elder Zhang Maosheng. When Yi Xing passed through the array, the first person he saw was Zishan Ho. Master! Yi Xing immediately ran up, looking surprised and happy. Hua Tianshu and Zishan Ho had a grudge against each other. Now that the Falling Star sect was destroyed, Hua Tianshu would not let Zishan Ho go. Therefore, Yi Xing had always thought that his master, Zishan Ho, was doomed. He did not expect to see Zishan Ho in the Star Crystal Vein and was pleasantly surprised. Zishan Ho's eyes were also full of surprise. Good. Yi Xing, it's great that you can come here safely. My Falling Star sect is not destroyed, and there is hope for a comeback. However, in the depths of Zishan Ho's eyes, there was a hint of sadness. The fallen gate had been broken, and his most respected Grand Elder Lin Shuyuan had died in battle. Even when he saw that Yi Xing was safe and was pleasantly surprised, the sadness in the depths of his heart did not dissipate. After the surprise, Yi Xing also showed a sad expression. I was lucky to escape, but the sect master and the elders, they... Yi Xing thought of the scene where Lu Tianyuan and the others let the Purple Flame Monarch Eagle carry him to escape, while they fought the enemy to the death. He was extremely angry and sad, unable to speak. Zishan Ho patted Yi Xing's shoulder and said, We already know that you Ping Hai betrayed the sect, and the sect master and the others died in battle in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, but they did not regret it. Their last concern was whether you could come back safely. Now that you are here, it proves that they did not die in vain. They can rest in peace in the underworld. Before Lu Tianyuan died, he used the communication bead to send a message to the Star Crystal Vein, asking Gu Tianshang to keep an eye on the outside and wait for Yi Xing to come back. Gu Tianshang and Zishan Ho had already discussed this matter, so Zishan Ho naturally knew what happened to Lu Tianyuan and the others. On the side, Gu Tianshang also walked over. His hair was still white, but the wrinkles on his face were gone. His skin was much smoother, and he seemed to be dozens of years younger. Gu Tianshang walked to Yi Xing, patted Yi Xing's shoulder and said, Yi Xing, the future of the Falling Star sect depends on you. You have to work hard to drive the East Fu sect out of the Falling Star Kingdom as soon as possible, and rebuild the Falling Star sect. Yi Xing nodded. He looked at Gu Tianxiang with surprise and said, Elder Gu, you have broken through to the astral realm? A perfected cultivator in the astral realm had a lifespan of 200 years. Gu Tianxiang was a half-step perfected cultivator in his 80s, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. Now, he was dozens of years younger. Without looking at his hair, he looked like he was in his 40s. There was only one possibility, and that was that he had broken through and increased his lifespan. That was why he looked younger. Gu Tianxiang nodded, and there was a look of enlightenment in his eyes. He said, I was lucky to break through, Sai. It seemed that Gu Tianxiang was not happy about breaking through to the astral realm. Xianxia said, there was also a traitor in the star crystal mine. Elder Zhang Maoxing of the affair hall suddenly attacked and severely injured Elder Lin Dongsheng. He wanted to destroy the formation of the star crystal mine from the inside, and kill Elder Gu. If the Falling Star sect was taken over by the East Fu sect, then the Falling Star sect would lose its last piece of land. At the critical moment of the sect's survival, Elder Gu broke through the bottleneck of decades and became a level 3 array master, a perfected cultivator in the astral realm, and killed the traitor Zhang Maoxing. Xianxia sighed and continued, Elder Gu achieved enlightenment, breaking through both the Tao of formations and the Tao of martial arts. This should be a joyous occasion, but the price is too great. Elder Gu's voice was melancholy. He said, if I could choose, I would only want the Falling Star sect to be safe and sound. I would have no regrets if I could not break through in martial Tao and array Tao in this generation. Gu Tianxiang had been stimulated by the life and death of his sect. He had been enlightened and resolved the inner demons that had imprisoned him for decades. A great talent matured slowly, and he had made breakthroughs in both martial arts and formations. If it were not for this experience, Gu Tianxiang would not be able to make any progress in either array Tao or martial Tao at his old age. The cause and effect of this was indeed costly. No wonder Gu Tianxiang was not happy even though he was enlightened. He would rather not be enlightened at all. Looking for recommendation votes ++++++1. Chapter 347. Yi Xing was silent. Like Gu Tianxiang, his cultivation had broken through to the 8th level of the Star Vortex realm because of the destruction of his sect. His state of mind had sublimated, and he had broken through. Although this had greatly increased Yi Xing's cultivation speed, Yi Xing and Gu Tianxiang had the same idea. If the Falling Star sect was not destroyed, and if Master Lin Fenghua and sect leader Lu Tianyuan were not dead, Yi Xing would rather not break through. Sigh! Yi Xing was touched and sighed. Xianxia patted Yi Xing's shoulder again and said, the sect has been destroyed. You are the only hope of the Falling Star sect. The future of the Falling Star sect is in your hands. You must be strong and pull yourself together. Yi Xing nodded. Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and said, my family? Although Yi Xing had burned Yun Zhanfei's body to ashes and left a false impression that Yun Zhanfei had killed him, the other party might not believe it. If the other party knew that he was not dead but couldn't catch him, then his family might be in danger. Although Yi Xing's feelings for the Ye family and his parents were very faint, or even close to none, he didn't want the Ye family to suffer because of him. The Ye family was his starting point in the Star Continent. Yi Xing only wanted the Ye family to develop better and better. Xianxia comforted Yi Xing and said, Chu Jingyue told me that Hua Tianshu had betrayed the sect. After the sect was destroyed, I went to your family immediately and brought your parents here. As for the entire Yi clan, because there are too many people, there's no time, and there's no need for that. You've already left your clan, and you're a disciple of the Falling Star sect. Even if the Dong Fu sect wants to force you, they will only target your parents, not your clan. The East Rising Star sect was one of the 6 southern sects, while the Ye family was only a small family in the Falling Star Kingdom. There was a world of difference between the two. For a family like the Ye family to have such an accomplished warrior like Yi Xing, other than their own family members, the rest of the family members were not close. The East Rising Star sect knew that they couldn't use the Ye family to force Yi Xing out. Using a Rising Star sect to deal with an ordinary warrior's family was simply lowering their status. The only possibility was that the Dong Fu sect had captured Yi Xing's family and used them to force Yi Xing. However, that wouldn't have much of an effect, as the chances of the Dongfu sect doing something like that were very low. However, Xianxia eliminated that possibility, and immediately brought Yi Feihong and Lu Yi to the Star Crystal Mine to protect them. Yixing was surprised. Chu Jingyue? Did she escape? Xianxia nodded. Because she is Hua Tianxu's disciple, she managed to escape the calamity. The moment her sect was destroyed, she escaped on a black-feathered eagle and came to Zishan County to tell me the news. Otherwise, I would have been encircled by Hua Tianxu's men and died. Now, Chu Jingyue isn't doing well. Hua Tianxu has taken her life essence. She's now pale as if she's 70 or 80 years old. I'm afraid she won't live for more than a few years. Yixing was shocked. How could this be? Zishan sighed. I heard from Chu Jingyue that she's practicing a technique called the art of marrying beauty. This technique should be a kind of evil technique. It's very smooth to practice, but there's a disadvantage. After practicing it, one's life essence will be sucked away. Hua Tianxu must have practiced a beauty cultivation technique that can restrain the art of marrying beauty. She absorbed Chu Jingyue's life essence just to preserve her appearance. Hua Tianxu again. Yixing's heart surged with an extremely strong murderous intent towards Hua Tianxu. Yixing said, "Where is she now? I'll go see her." In Yixing's heart, Chu Jingyue was one of his few friends. She was much more important than Yi Feihong and Lu Ao. Yixing only wanted to hear the news of Yi Feihong and Lu Ao's safety. He didn't want to meet them, but after hearing news of Chu Jingyue, he couldn't help but want to visit. Zishan waved his hand. She definitely doesn't want to meet you now. You'd better not go see her. Yixing frowned. How can she be cured after losing her life essence? Zishan said, this isn't an injury, but the loss of her life essence. Even a pill that can revive the dead can't save her. However, some heavenly treasures that can prolong her life and replenish her life essence may be able to restore her youth. However, this is the same as the pill that can revive the dead. It only exists in legends and is something that can only be encountered but not sought. Yixing said, Sigh. This can only depend on luck. If I encounter a heavenly treasure that can prolong her life in the future, I'll try to get it and help her. Not to mention his friendship with her, just the fact that Chu Jingyue had informed Zishan immediately after the sect's destruction allowed Zishan to escape from Hua Tianxu's revenge. Moreover, she had also allowed his cheap parents to safely arrive at the Star Crystal Mine. Yixing had to do his best to repay her kindness. These things will depend on the future. Let's talk about it later. Gu Tianshang interrupted their conversation and said to Yixing, Now your first task is to increase your cultivation and quickly break through to the astral realm. Increase your strength and drive the East Fu sect out of the Falling Star Kingdom as soon as possible. Then, rebuild the Falling Star sect. Yixing nodded and said, I understand, but cultivation can't be rushed. I've just broken through to the 8-star Martial Saint realm. No matter how much I cultivate, it's hard to increase my cultivation in a short time. I'm going to cultivate martial skills and increase my strength first. In 3 months, the Young Hero Assembly held by the 9 sect alliances will begin. I want to represent the Falling Star sect and fight for a good ranking. Both Gu Tianshang and Zishan laughed. Gu Tianshang said, I can guarantee that your cultivation will reach a higher level very soon. Zishan nodded at the side. Yixing asked in surprise, Why? Gu Tianshang said, There are joys and sorrows in life. Today, the sect's destruction is heartbreaking. However, what happened today is not all bad. There is also a good thing. Yixing looked at Gu Tianshang and Zishan in surprise. If it could be called a good thing at this time, then it must be a great thing. Gu Tianshang said, Today, there was another discovery in the star crystal lode. In the depths of the lode, there are higher quality star crystals. Below that, there is a middle-grade star crystal lode. In the middle-grade star crystal lode, there is a higher quality star crystal spiritual milk. Originally, I planned to distribute the star crystal spiritual milk to the 10 elite disciples who enter the Azure Cloud ancient land. Now, only you have returned. Moreover, you are the hope of reviving the Falling Star sect. All the star crystal spiritual milk in the middle-grade star crystal lode belongs to you. It will allow you to increase your cultivation at the fastest speed and rebuild the Falling Star sect as soon as possible. Yi Xing's eyes widened as he exclaimed, "Middle-grade star crystal load?" Star crystals were divided into low, middle, and high grade. One high-grade star crystal was equivalent to 100 low-grade star crystals. One middle-grade star crystal was equivalent to 100 low-grade star crystals. In the Azure Cloud region, high-grade star crystals were a legend. Middle-grade star crystals were extremely precious. Setting up a level 3 array and restoring astral energy would require a lot of them. In the entire Azure Cloud region, no one had heard of a middle-grade star crystal load. The middle-grade star crystals in the hands of the top 10 sects were all exchanged from other places in the True Xian domain. For the 6 sects in the southern part of the Azure Cloud region, the middle-grade star crystals of the enlightened masters and elders of the sects were probably only a few thousand. Even the richest sect only had tens of thousands of middle-grade star crystals. However, a mid-grade star crystal vein would contain an enormous amount of mid-grade star crystals. There would be at least 1 million mid-grade star crystals. In other words, a middle-grade star crystal load was worth more than 100 sects of the same level as the 6 southern sects. One could imagine how much wealth this was. Not to mention the 6 southern sects, even the 4 northern sects were worth less than half a middle-grade star crystal load. It was no wonder that Gu Tianshang said that it was a good thing when the falling star sect was going through a calamity. It was indeed a great thing. Even the 9 upper sects might not have a middle-grade star crystal load. The falling star sect had a middle-grade star crystal load, so it would not lack financial resources to rebuild the sect in the future. What it lacked was strength. As long as it had the strength to rebuild with the financial support of the middle-grade star crystal load, the falling star sect would definitely develop rapidly and become the overlord of the Azure Cloud region. Compared to the value of the entire medium-grade star crystal load, the star crystal spiritual milk that was produced along with the load was something that could only be found by chance, but it didn't shock Yi Xing as much. After all, Yi Xing had seen star crystal spiritual milk before. Translator. Nioi Bo Studio Editor. Nioi Bo Studio. Chapter 348. The low-grade star crystal vein was located between 100 and 1,000 meters underground. 1,000 meters underground was the mid-grade star crystal vein. As for how deep it was, it had not been explored yet. The star crystal spiritual milk produced by the mid-grade star crystal load was about 1,000 meters underground. However, Yi Xing had to walk a few miles to get to this place. The star crystal spiritual milk was located in a natural underground hall. It was very spacious, more than 10 zhang high, and almost 100 meters wide. When the miners excavating the low-grade star crystals found the star crystal spiritual milk in the center of the hall, they reported it to the person in charge of the star crystal vein, Gu Tianshang. Lin Dongsheng and Zhang Maoxing were perfected persons who were in charge of the star crystal vein. Gu Tianshang was only a half-step perfected persons, so his position was lower than theirs. However, the formation of the star crystal vein was completely controlled by Gu Tianshang. Therefore, Gu Tianshang was the real person in charge of the star crystal vein. The 2 perfected persons were responsible for guarding the star crystal vein. Therefore, they only reported the mid-grade star crystal vein to Gu Tianshang. When Gu Tianshang heard about it, he immediately blocked the news. At the same time, he also sealed the hall where the mid-grade star crystal vein was located and sent his trusted subordinates to guard it. No one was allowed to enter. Now, Gu Tianshang had let Yi Xing absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. After bringing Yi Xing here, he naturally dismissed the guards. Yi Xing looked at the star crystal spiritual milk in the center of the hall. The amount was about the same as the low-grade star crystal vein, but the quality was 1 level higher. The star crystal spiritual milk in the low-grade star crystal vein allowed Yi Xing to break through from a half-step martial saint to a 2-star martial saint. It seemed that the star crystal spiritual milk here could help him break through to the 9th level star spiral realm, or even higher. Yi Xing withdrew his gaze from the star crystal spiritual milk pool and said, "Master, Elder Gu, there are many things I haven't fully comprehended yet. I may need to cultivate in seclusion for a while. If I don't come out, you don't need to worry." Zi Shanho nodded. Gu Tianshang said, "You can cultivate in seclusion for as long as you want. I'm waiting for you to soar to the sky." After Zi Shanho and Gu Tianshang left, Yi Xing did not rush to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk pool. He had just broken through to the 8-star martial saint realm today. Although his mental state was strong enough to continue improving his cultivation, and he could use the star crystal spiritual milk to replenish his energy and make another breakthrough, it was too fast. After all, his foundation was unstable. Moreover, when Yixing's state of mind was sublimated, Taoist connotation was added to his body. He had a lot of enlightenment, but he didn't fully understand it. He had to strengthen his comprehension while he still had the feeling and completely transform it into his own. Otherwise, if too much time passed, the feeling would disappear, and it would be extremely difficult to comprehend anything again. His greatest gain during these few days was that his comprehension of thought force had once again increased by a level, and it had attained the 4th level. Xianxua's power of heart was only at the 3rd stage. When Yixing fought with Yun Zhanfei, his power of heart was also at the 3rd stage. 9th stage of heart force. The first 3 levels were of 1 grade and were relatively easy to raise. The middle 3 levels were also of 1 grade and were much more difficult to raise than the first 3 levels. The last 3 levels were of 1 grade and were extremely difficult to raise. Yixing's heart force broke through from the 3rd stage to the 4th stage. This was a qualitative breakthrough, a huge breakthrough. This meant that Yixing's archery had reached the level of 4 transformations. As his attainments in archery improved, Yixing's attainments in the 4 symbols archery technique also improved. Although he had yet to practice archery, his intuition told him that his 4 symbols archery technique had reached the consummate realm. The power of thought was closely related to a cultivator's martial attainments. With the 4th stage of heart force, it was not difficult for Yixing to cultivate the 4 symbols archery art to perfection. This also included the dark spirit spear art and heavenly bat footwork art that had long reached perfection. Yixing stopped comprehending. The 4th stage of heart force was an extremely high level of comprehension among astral realm sages. Yixing was only an 8-star martial saint. He had only reached this level by chance. Now that he had passed the state, it was impossible for him to continue improving his comprehension of heart force. Yixing was not in a hurry to cultivate martial arts. Instead, he sat down beside the star crystal spiritual milk and absorbed it, preparing to break through to 9-star martial saint. Although Yixing had only broken through to 8-star martial saint for a short time, the battle with 1-star martial saint Yun Zhanfei had allowed him to completely familiarize himself with the cultivation state of an 8-star martial saint. After 5 days and 5 nights of comprehension, it was also very beneficial to his consolidation of cultivation. Although his cultivation foundation was not very stable now, it was enough for him to break through to 9-star martial saint. The Young Hero Assembly would be held in 2 months. At that time, Yixing would be facing the younger generation of the entire True Xian domain. Many of them would be true human realm geniuses with great strength. Yixing knew that it would be difficult for him to compete with the younger generation of true human realm geniuses with just the cultivation of an 8-star martial saint. Therefore, he had to improve his cultivation. Yixing used the black hole astrology and the high-grade falling star art to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. His cultivation increased rapidly. The quality of the star crystal spiritual milk was different, so the speed of absorption was very different. When Yixing was a half-step martial saint, it only took him a little more than 2 hours to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk in the low-grade star crystal vein. Now that he was an 8-star martial saint, it took him a whole day to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk around him. But he had only absorbed 1/3 of the total amount. After a whole day, Yixing's cultivation finally had a qualitative breakthrough. The star vortex in his dantian expanded and reached the limit of the star vortex realm. The strength of the star essence in his body continued to increase. The higher the strength of the star essence, the closer it was to the star essence. It would be easier to transform it into star essence in the future. 9-star martial saint, the last stage of the celestial vortex realm. Yixing had never dared to dream of reaching this stage in the past. Now, he had already reached this stage before he was even 18 years old. Some dreams and goals seemed very far away at first. However, after a period of time, when one looked back, one would realize that one had unknowingly reached or even surpassed one's dreams or goals. At this time, when one thought about the past, one would realize that it was silly to be confused and worried about the future. When Yixing thought about the past, he became even more confident. Since he could reach his goal now, then one day in the future, he would definitely reach his current goal and become the most powerful warrior in the star continent, reaching the peak of the martial Tao. After breaking through to the 9-star martial saint, Yixing continued to absorb the star crystal spiritual milk. The next realm breakthrough was from the star vortex realm to the astral realm. The half-step enlightened being in between was just a transitional stage. It could not be considered a cultivation breakthrough. Therefore, Yi Xing could consolidate his cultivation to the half-step enlightened being in one fell swoop. He could stop cultivating before the next cultivation breakthrough and wait until he had completely adapted to the half-step enlightened being's cultivation before breaking through to the astral realm. Breaking through to the astral realm is easier said than done. I'm afraid that even if I absorb all the star crystal spiritual milk here, I still won't be able to break through. I'll just absorb it boldly. Let's talk about it later. Yi Xing observed the amount of star crystal spiritual milk and thought to himself. 2 days later, not a drop of star crystal spiritual milk was left. All of it had been absorbed by Yi Xing. Yi Xing's cultivation had stabilized to the half-step enlightened being. Moreover, half of the astral energy in his body had been transformed. He was at the peak of the half-step enlightened being. Thanks to Yi Xing's continuous cultivation, the high-grade falling star incantation had risen another level, reaching the 4th layer. This caused Yi Xing's astral stars to be extremely condensed and of extremely high quality. Compared to enlightened 1 star's astral stars, they were only inferior in terms of quantity. Feeling the surging energy in his body, Yi Xing was confident that with his current strength, he would not be inferior to Yun Zhanfei in a head-on battle. If he used all his trump cards, he would be able to kill Yun Zhanfei in a matter of minutes. This was not blind arrogance, but genuine confidence. He had fought Yun Zhanfei head-on before, so he was clear about Yun Zhanfei's strength. In terms of martial arts, he was not inferior to Yun Zhanfei. In terms of astral energy, he was not inferior to Yun Zhanfei. Moreover, Yi Xing's comprehension of the grand momentum of heaven and earth was far superior to Yun Zhanfei. Other than the fact that his astral energy was inferior to Yun Zhanfei's and that he could not fight for a long time, he surpassed Yun Zhanfei in all other aspects. Chapter 349. Yun Zhanfei is much stronger than Watanabe Ing. Amongst the 1-star true masters, he should be relatively strong. My current strength surpasses Yun Zhanfei's by a great deal. Sweeping away the 1-star true masters shouldn't be a problem. I just don't know if I can fight a 1-star true master without revealing the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation. Yi Xing muttered to himself as he stood up, feeling the surging strength in his body. My heart force has reached the 4th level. It won't be difficult for me to cultivate the 4 symbols arrow art, dark spirit spear art, and heavenly bat steps to the boundary of perfection. Moreover, I can also cultivate the astral flame fist to a higher level. If my martial arts attainments can take another step forward, then even if I don't use the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation, I should be able to sweep away a 2-star true master. In the following time, I will cultivate martial arts with all my strength and increase my strength. With a thought, Yi Xing lifted his hand and the high-grade spirit weapon, the Black Dragon Spear, appeared in his hand. But in the blink of an eye, the Black Dragon Spear was put away by Yi Xing. The Dark Spirit Spear art was immensely powerful. In particular, with the Dark Spirit Spear art at the perfection boundary, just how powerful would a single spear thrust out be? This was an underground cave. If Yi Xing were to use this move with all his strength, the entire hall would collapse. Yi Xing's current strength was enough to contend with an early true master. At this degree, he couldn't casually cultivate martial arts anywhere. Yi Xing left the underground hall and returned to the surface, finding Xianxia and Gu Tianshang. What? You want to go out adventuring so soon? Just what degree has your cultivation reached? I can no longer see through it. As Xianxia and Gu Tianshang heard Yi Xing's words, they were both startled. Yi Xing released his cultivation. He nodded and said, I need a spacious place to cultivate martial arts. The space here is too small and there are array formations all around. It's not suitable for me to cultivate here. Moreover, the Young Hero Assembly is just around the corner. This place is very far from Nine Heavens City, so I have to leave early. Therefore, I won't return here after I leave this place. I will first find a place to cultivate my martial arts, then head straight to Nine Heavens City. When I return, the Dongfu sect will be doomed. Gu Tianshang said worriedly, the true mystic region is very big. It has a circumference of 1,000,000 miles. Even a true human rank flying mount would take 10 days to half a month to reach the 9-heaven city. The journey is very long, and you are only a half-step true human rank. It is very dangerous for you to travel alone. I don't think you should participate in the young hero assembly. You are absolutely safe here. It doesn't matter if your cultivation is slow. With your potential you will grow sooner or later. It won't be too late to rebuild the Meteor Fall sect when you have full confidence. Xianxia also nodded and said, Yixing, you are the hope of the safety first. Yixing shook his head and said, if a warrior hides in a place to cultivate, not only will his cultivation speed be slow, it will also be difficult for him to achieve anything. Only by growing through experience can he become a true expert. There is something I need at the Young Hero Assembly, so I must go. Master, Elder Gu, don't stop me. Although I am alone, I have my own means to protect myself. Most of the true human rank experts can't do anything to me. Yixing was eyeing the Young Hero Assembly's first prize, the resurrection pill. Although he felt that with his half-step true human rank cultivation, the chances of him winning the first place were not high, he still had to work hard. Moreover, Yixing also wanted to see the outside world and compete with the young geniuses of the true mystic region. The world was very big, and if one wanted to become a true expert, they had to go out and explore. If one wanted to become a powerhouse in this world, they had to at least get to know this world and understand the martial artists in this world. If one didn't even understand the outside world and only knew how to cultivate bitterly in one place, how could one become a powerhouse if one didn't even know how strong one was? Yixing had made up his mind, so Gu Tianshang and Xianxia didn't stop him. They told Yixing to be careful outside and gave him a large amount of mid-grade star crystals to let Yixing leave the star crystal lode. Yixing left the star crystal lode after dusk. He traveled in the night without anyone noticing. Even if someone was watching outside the star crystal lode, they wouldn't be able to find him. After he was far away from the star crystal lode, Yixing dispersed the dark aura and a pair of black wings grew out from his back. Yixing spread his wings and flew as fast as lightning towards the depths of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range. The night of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range was the world of demonic beasts. Beasts roared continuously, and Yixing often saw the silhouettes of demonic beasts in the sky. To Yixing, the Blue Cloud Mountain Range was like his back garden. No matter how many demonic beasts there were, he was not afraid. Firstly, Yixing had a flying spirit tool and could fly in the sky. If it wasn't a flying spirit tool, no matter how many demonic beasts there were, they wouldn't be able to touch him. Secondly, Yixing had the eyes of Blue Cloud. Unless it was a mid-rank 3 demonic beast or above, it wouldn't be a threat to Yixing. Instead, it would be controlled by Yixing. Thirdly, if Yixing used his Blue Cloud wings to escape, even a mid-rank 3 demonic beast wouldn't be able to catch up to him. Therefore, in the Blue Cloud Ancient Land, be it day or night, Yixing was very safe. Yixing came to the depths of the Blue Cloud Mountain Range for 2 reasons. Firstly, there was no human habitation in the Blue Cloud Mountain Range, which was suitable for Yixing to practice martial arts. Secondly, Yixing wanted to find a demonic beast equivalent to a 3-star venerable and use his eyes of Blue Cloud to control it as his pet. Although Yixing had a flight-type spiritual artifact, the flight-type spiritual artifact consumed his celestial essence and energy. Moreover, the journey to the 9-heaven city was very long, and it wasn't something that could be reached in a day or 2. Therefore, Yixing preferred to ride on a demonic bird. Although it wasn't slow, it was much easier. There weren't many demonic beasts equivalent to a 3-star venerable in the Blue Cloud Mountain Range. The closer one was to the center, the easier it was to encounter one. Yixing flew for a few hours and reached an area deeper than the old site of the Blue Cloud sect before stopping. The area where Yixing was located was a rare flatland in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. It spanned several li in radius, and the view was vast. Regardless of whether it was practicing spear arts, light martial arts or archery, it was an ideal location. What surprised Yixing was that he didn't find a single monster beast in this area. This place is suitable for practicing martial arts. I'll cultivate my martial arts here to the boundary of perfection, and then look for a flying mount. Yixing thought to himself. Whoosh, after a long time, Yixing used his black feather wings and shot into the skies. He flew dozens of miles before finding a 3rd-level monster beast. Using his eyes of Blue Cloud to control it, He brought it to the flat area. This was a black-armored iron bull, equal to a 1-star venerable. The reason Yi Xing brought this monster beast here was to have it stand guard at his side. Whether it was resting or practicing martial arts, Yi Xing didn't want to be disturbed. Although there weren't any other monster beasts here, Yi Xing still had to be on guard. With a 3rd-level monster beast black-armored iron bull standing guard, it would save him a great deal of trouble. With the black-armored iron bull standing guard at his side, Yi Xing took a nap. After dawn arrived, he ate some food from his storage ring and then took out the black dragon spear. Using the black hole star avatar, he began to practice the dark spirit spear arts. Now Yi Xing had a half-step true master cultivation, and 50% of his celestial essence had been transformed into astral energy. When he used his spear, the spear shadows that erupted turned from energy to astral light. The power behind them was terrifying. With every move he used, the air in front of him would surge. Sand and stones would fly into the air, and wind blades would tear through the air, emitting whistling sounds. Bang! In particular, the dark spirit spear arts was even more terrifying. With a thrust of Yi Xing's spear, the earth would shake and a layer of the ground would rise up for dozens of meters. Wherever the spear point pointed, a massive crater would appear from the impact of the terrifying strength. Only in this desolate and uninhabited place could Yi Xing completely let loose. When he practiced the dark spirit spear arts, he had to display his full strength. Only like this could he thoroughly comprehend the dark spirit spear arts and fuse it with the power of his mind, reaching the boundary of perfection. After practicing the dark spirit spear arts 10 times, Yi Xing began to gasp for breath. He switched to practicing the heavenly bat steps to adjust his physical strength and celestial essence consumption. The first day quickly passed. Yi Xing could feel that whether it was the dark spirit spear arts or the heavenly bat steps, he had increased his attainments in both. His comprehensions were becoming increasingly profound. The next day, Yi Xing continued to practice. When he used the dark spirit spear arts, the earth trembled and rumbling sounds filled his ears. The 4th level of heart force had an extraordinary effect on increasing one's martial arts attainments. By noon, Yi Xing's dark spirit spear arts had successfully broken through to the boundary of perfection. Moo! Yi Xing was overjoyed. At this time, the black-armored demon bull guarding the edge of the plains suddenly cried out. Chapter 350. The black-scaled demonic bull cried out in warning. Someone or a demonic beast was coming this way. Yi Xing looked towards the direction of the black-scaled demonic bull. After a short while, a demonic bird crossed a mountain ridge and appeared in Yi Xing's field of vision, arriving in the sky above the plains. Yi Xing looked into the distance and his face changed. His eyes suddenly shot out a beam of light. This demonic bird was a level 2 overlord demonic beast, red-tailed eagle, which was equivalent to a half-step enlightened master. What made Yi Xing's face change was not the red-tailed eagle, but a 2-star enlightened master standing on the back of the red-tailed eagle. In the depths of the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, in the heart of the demonic beast territory, it was a coincidence to see a human martial artist. What was even more coincidental was that Yi Xing recognized this 2-star enlightened master. 10 days ago, the Falling Star sect was attacked by several enlightened masters, and this person was one of them. Yi Xing remembered very clearly that he was together with the Flying Cloud sect's Jianghu. At that time, the enlightened masters and elders of the sect all transmitted the names of these enemies to Yi Xing. This person was the Flying Cloud sect's elder, Chou Buahong. Yi Xing never expected that in just 10 days, he would meet one of his enemies, Chou Buahong, in the depths of the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. After a trace of surprise, Yi Xing's eyes naturally flashed, revealing his killing intent. Chou Buahong rode the red-tailed eagle and quickly flew over. When he saw Yi Xing, his expression was also surprised, but then he revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. In these 10 days, the Flying Cloud sect was pressured by the Sun Moon sect, East Supporting sect, Blood Spectre sect, and Wind God sect to hand over Jianghu. Otherwise, the Flying Cloud sect would compensate Jianghu for the treasures he took from Yi Xing. On Yi Xing's body, there were 2 high-grade spirit weapons. One was suspected to be a high-grade flying spirit weapon. Its value was at least equal to a top-grade spirit weapon. The Falling Star sect master's ring was a middle-grade storage ring. Its value was no less than a high-grade spirit weapon. The Flying Cloud sect couldn't afford it even if they lost all their property. Therefore these days, the Flying Cloud sect was burning with anxiety, looking for Yun Zhanfei everywhere. At the same time, the other sects were also looking for Yun Zhanfei in the Qingyun region. However, there was no news of Yun Zhanfei. Therefore, they suspected that Yun Zhanfei was still hiding in the Qingyun mountain range. For this reason, the Flying Cloud sect dispatched many Taoist masters and elders to search the Azure Cloud mountain range. However, how vast was the Azure Cloud mountain range? Looking for a person inside was equivalent to looking for a needle in a haystack. Every Taoist master of the Flying Cloud sect was responsible for searching a very large area. Yi Xing's current location was within the area that Chou Buohong was in charge of searching. Today, Chou Buohong was searching not far away when he was attracted by the commotion caused by Yi Xing practicing the dark spirit spear arts. He flew over on a red-tailed eagle. However, instead of Yun Zhanfei, he saw Yi Xing. How could he not be shocked? Seeing Yi Xing, Chou Buohong instantly understood that the person who was burned to ashes should be Yun Zhanfei. Their previous judgment was completely wrong, ridiculously wrong. However, after the shock, Chou Buohong's mood quickly turned into pleasant surprise. Yi Xing didn't die. This meant that Yi Xing's treasures were still on Yi Xing's body. Furthermore, Yun Zhanfei's mid-grade flying spirit tool was also on Yi Xing's body. Looking at Yi Xing, Chou Buohong's eyes were filled with joy as if he was looking at a big treasure. Chou Buohong didn't want to share this big treasure with others. Therefore when he saw Yi Xing, he was filled with pleasant surprise and didn't use the communication pearl to inform others. Like Yun Zhanfei, he wanted to take all the treasures on Yi Xing's body. 2 high-grade spirit weapons, a high-grade flying spirit tool, a mid-grade storage ring, and a mid-grade flying spirit tool. With these treasures, he could leave the Qingyun region and live a comfortable life in other places. He could even use these treasures to exchange for heavenly treasures that could increase his cultivation. Even if his potential was exhausted, he could still forcefully become a 3-star sage or even a 4-star sage. In the Starland, strength represented status. If he became a 4-star sage, he would be a middle sage. How glorious would that be? As for whether he could kill Yi Xing, Yun Zhanfei didn't even consider it. Even if Yun Zhanfei died in Yi Xing's hands, Chou Buohong was still confident that he could kill Yi Xing. He was a 2-star sage. His strength was far from Yun Zhanfei's. Moreover, Chou Buohong didn't believe that Yi Xing killed Yun Zhanfei with his true strength. Yun Zhanfei must have underestimated his opponent. Moreover, Yi Xing must have used some kind of forbidden artifact or a ray disc that could threaten a sage's life. If Yi Xing killed Yun Zhanfei and used up those treasures, Chou Buohong didn't believe that Yi Xing would have more. Treasures that could kill a sage were extremely precious. Even Chou Buohong, a 2-star sage, didn't have them. Therefore, even if Yi Xing had more, it would only be by chance. It was impossible for him to have more than one. The red-tailed eagle stopped 1,000 meters away from Yi Xing. Chou Buohong stared at Yi Xing coldly. Yi Xing also stared back at him coldly. Both of their eyes were filled with cold killing intent. They both thought of each other as a dead man. Before his dark spirit spear art reached the transformation stage, Yi Xing was already fearless of a 2-star sage after using all his trump cards. Now that his dark spirit spear art had reached the transformation stage, its power was incomparable to the perfect stage. It was comparable to an upper stage spiritual martial art. As for a 2-star sage, it was extremely difficult to cultivate an upper stage spiritual martial art to the initial stage. Yi Xing believed that even if there was a gap in cultivation, he could make up for it with his martial attainment and comprehension of the heaven and earth. Even if he did not use his 2 trump cards, the Sagittarius constellation and the Black Hole constellation, Yi Xing had absolute confidence to fight against a 2-star sage. On the red-tailed eagle, Chou Buohong looked down at Yi Xing from above and said, "Kid, you are not dead. The person who was burned to ashes was Yun Zhanfei. You purposely tore your clothes and scattered them nearby so that we would think that you were dead. We would think that Yun Zhanfei had taken all your treasures and ran away, so that we would shift our attention to the dead Yun Zhanfei. Then, we would not be able to find Yun Zhanfei to prove it. Kid, you are so scheming." Yi Xing looked at Chou Buohong coldly and said, "Isn't this the result that you want? Why are you pretending to be dissatisfied?" He. Cho Buohong laughed and said, "That's right, this is the result that I want. Kid, you are a smart person. You know what the result will be if you fall into my hands. I will give you a chance to end it quickly so that I don't have to do it myself." Yi Xing laughed coldly and said, "I'll end it myself? Are you an idiot? Don't tell me that I can't beat you down from that damn bird. Then, I will slap your mouth and break your limbs. Finally, I will use my spiritual weapon to pierce your heart and make a big hole in your body. Or, I will also give you a chance to end it quickly so that I don't have to do it myself. You know what the result will be." Cho Buohong narrowed his eyes and the corners of his eyes twitched. Yi Xing was more unyielding than he had imagined. Although he knew that Yi Xing would not commit suicide because of his words, he would at least be afraid. However, he could not see the slightest trace of fear from Yi Xing. As a 2-star sage, he did not have the slightest bit of prestige in front of an 8-star martial saint. This made Cho Buohong very unhappy. At this time, with Yi Xing's astral energy locked down, Cho Buohong was unable to see through his specific cultivation. However, 10 days ago, Yi Xing had just broken through to 8-star martial saint. Cho Buohong naturally thought that Yi Xing was still an 8-star martial saint. He never imagined that Yi Xing had already used the star crystal spirit milk produced in the middle-grade star crystal vein to rapidly increase his cultivation to a half-step true sage. Moreover, he was a half-step true sage with 50% astral energy transformed. Of course, even if Cho Buohong knew that Yi Xing was a half-step true sage, he still had no fear. A half-step true sage could jump ranks and fight a 2-star sage? In Cho Buohong's life, in the history of the Clear Sky region, there had never been a monstrous genius with such a heaven-defying combat strength. "You are courting death." Cho Buohong leapt down from the red-tailed eagle's back. He took out a middle-grade spirit spear and pointed it at Yi Xing, coldly saying. Yi Xing grasped the black dragon spear in his right hand and pointed it at the sky. "You dare to use your spear in front of me? Die!" Cho Buohong roared out in anger. In that instant, the middle-grade spirit spear in Cho Buohong's hand erupted with a brilliant light. With a flash of light, the air was torn apart and the spear thrust towards Yi Xing. "Thank you, brothers, for your monthly votes." Chapter 351. Medium-grade Spirit Martial Art. Gale Spear Art. Cho Buohong's Gale Spear Art had already reached perfection. This was a spirit martial art that emphasized speed. Moreover, Cho Buohong's comprehension of the potential of the wind was extremely profound. This increased the speed of the Gale Spear Art. With a thrust of his spear, the distance of 1,000 meters was like a ruler. Although Cho Buohong was confident in himself and looked down on Yi Xing in terms of strength, because Yun Zhanfei had died under Yi Xing's hands, Cho Buohong didn't relax his tactics. Instead, he remained vigilant, attaching great importance to this battle. In this spear strike, Cho Buohong had used at least 80% of his strength. Let alone a half-step true master, even a 1-star true master would be frightened out of their wits by this spear strike. But Yi Xing was not an ordinary half-step true master, nor was he someone a 1-star true master could compare with. In particular, speed. In this aspect, any early true master could forget about gaining an advantage in front of Yi Xing. Dark Spirit Spear Art. The black dragon spear in Yi Xing's hands moved. In an instant, a dark spear light shot out. He used the dark spirit spear art and thrust out his spear. Cho Buohong's spear was fast, but Yi Xing's spear was even faster. The two spirit spears were like two needles against each other, their spear points thrusting together. Bang! A terrifying astral collision emitted explosive sounds. In that instant, a mass of energy rapidly spread out in all directions. Yi Xing and Cho Buohong's bodies shook at the same time. They were sent flying back 100 meters by the impact of this energy before falling to the ground. Wang! The medium-grade spirit spear in Cho Buohong's hands buzzed and trembled. As for the black dragon spear in Yi Xing's hands, it remained motionless, completely silent. One was a medium-grade spirit spear and the other was a high-grade spirit spear. In a collision of equal strength, it was clear which was stronger and which was weaker. The black dragon spear had dissolved the impact of the collision. Yi Xing's arm hadn't been impacted by the other's strength. But Cho Buohong's arm had been impacted by Yi Xing's spear, causing his arm to feel numb from the shock. Cho Buohong stared at Yi Xing. His eyes were filled with shock as he exclaimed. He said, "Half-step true master? This was impossible. You just broke through to 8-star martial sage 10 days ago. In just 10 days, how could you break through again and become a half-step martial sage?" Yi Xing's eyes were filled with intense killing intent as he said, "Impossible? Whether you believe it or not, the truth is the truth, just like your life. Even if you don't want to believe it, you can't change the fact that you will die today." Cho Buahong's eyes burned with anger as he shouted, "Hiding your cultivation? You must have hidden your cultivation before." No wonder you were able to kill Yun Zhanfei. It turns out that you are a half-step enlightened being, and your strength is not any weaker than a 1-star enlightened being. However, in front of me, Cho Buahong, your strength is not enough. Who instantly, Cho Buahong's aura surged. He circulated his astral energy to the limit, wanting to go all out against Yi Xing. Before this, Cho Buahong thought that 80% of his strength would be enough to kill Yi Xing. However, through the exchange just now, he had already tested out Yi Xing's strength. If he didn't go all out, there was no hope of killing Yi Xing facing Cho Buahong's surging aura. Yi Xing's expression was indifferent as he said, "A 2-star enlightened being is only as a... You are much weaker than I thought. Did you think that I went all out just now? I only used 60% of my strength to play with you." Yi Xing's aura also skyrocketed. The grand force of wind, the grand force of fire, and the grand force of darkness, the 3 grand forces of heaven and earth, caused Yi Xing's aura to be even stronger than Cho Buahong's. Cho Buahong's pupils shrank, revealing a trace of astonishment. A half-step enlightened being could actually release such a terrifying aura. This was simply more terrifying than most of the 2-star enlightened beings he had met. At this moment, cracks began to appear in Cho Buahong's confidence in winning. He regretted not notifying the other enlightened beings. If he were alone, it would be difficult for him to swallow up all the treasures on Yi Xing's body. Now, Cho Buahong wanted to notify the others, but Yi Xing wouldn't give him the time. He shouted, "You also want to try my spear? Dark Spirit Spear Art. Flash of Light." This spear was the Manifestation Realm Dark Spirit Spear Art. It had reached perfection. With the Minute Wind Force added on, its speed reached the extreme. With the Minute Fire Force and Darkness Force added on, its might was terrifying to the extreme. With a whoosh, a light flashed and the Black Dragon Spear arrived in front of Cho Buahong. Compared to Cho Buahong's Gale Spear Art, this spear was much faster and much stronger. As this spear arrived, Cho Buahong's heart tightened. A cold sweat dripped down his back as he felt a fatal threat. Cho Buahong's figure was like a bolt of lightning. He drew backwards, the medium-grade spirit spear in his hands thrusting forwards. Bang! 2 spears collided. With a loud explosive sound, energy exploded outwards. Cho Buahong's body shook and his retreating speed doubled as he shot backwards for over 1,000 meters. As for Yi Xing, he only paused for a moment. He didn't take half a step back. He used the heavenly bat steps and his figure flashed like a bolt of lightning. The Black Dragon Spear erupted with a brilliant dark spear light once more as it thrust towards Cho Buahong. "Dark Spirit Spear!" Yi Xing shouted out loud. He used the Dark Spirit Spear Art's ultimate killing move. The dark spear light shot forwards, occupying Cho Buahong's entire field of vision. The Manifestation Realm Dark Spirit Spear Art contained the rhythm of the Tao. Its moves were like divinity, possessing an unfathomable might. Even if it was a 1-star enlightened being whose cultivation was higher than Yi Xing's, in front of Yi Xing's spear, they still wouldn't have the strength to resist. They would instantly die. Cho Buahong was a 2-star enlightened being. Beneath this spear, he also felt an intense sense of death. However, the strength of a 2-star enlightened being was far from what a 1-star enlightened being could compare with. In front of this spear, a 1-star enlightened being had no ability to resist. A 2-star enlightened being. Cho Buahong bit down on the tip of his tongue. The pain caused him to instantly awaken from the illusion of divinity. However, the Black Dragon Spear was already close to his throat. Cho Buahong didn't have time to use his spear skills to resist. He could only instinctively block with his spear. Clang! The Black Dragon Spear's spear point ruthlessly struck the middle-grade spirit spear shaft, emitting a loud explosive sound. A terrifying strength instantly sent Cho Buahong flying backwards. Cho Buohong spat out a mouthful of blood as he shot backwards for over 1,000 meters. Whoosh! As Cho Buohong was still retreating, a beam of starlight shot out from between his eyebrows, turning into a star surrounded by a hurricane. This was a wind attribute astral image. Its star force surged, and from its intensity, it could be considered a high-grade astral image. Cho Buohong had used his astral image, but he didn't launch a counterattack against Yi Xing. Instead, he followed the strength of Yi Xing's spear and fled into the distance. Beneath the cover of the hurricane astral image's wind star force, Cho Buohong's speed doubled. Astral wind turned into wings and he rapidly glided through the air. His speed was at least twice as fast as when he rode the red-tailed eagle. At the same time, Cho Buohong took out the speed communication bead. Yi Xing's strength was far too formidable, causing him to be frightened out of his wits. As for Yi Xing's treasures, he no longer had the courage to take them all for himself. He had to notify the other enlightened beings so that they could besiege Yi Xing. How could Yi Xing give Cho Buohong the chance to notify the others? His lips curled up and a pair of blue wings instantly sprouted from his back. These weren't wings condensed from astral essence, but a true flight-type spirit artifact. Moreover, they were a top-grade flight-type spirit artifact, the Azure Cloud Wings. At this time, Yi Xing was striving to stop Cho Buohong as quickly as possible. Naturally, he had to erupt with his maximum speed. With a flap of the Azure Cloud Wings, Yi Xing instantly turned into a beam of light, vanishing from where he stood. Cho Buohong's speed was fast enough, nearly reaching the speed of a third-level monster bird. But compared to Yi Xing's speed when he used the Azure Cloud Wings, he was far too slow. He was at least twice as slow. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xing crossed several miles and appeared behind Cho Buohong. The black dragon spear in his hands emitted an intense dark spear light that ruthlessly stabbed towards Cho Buohong's back. Cho Buohong grasped the medium-grade spirit spear in one hand and the speed communication bead in the other. He had already activated the Azure Cloud Stars to activate the speed communication bead. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt a bone-chilling chill from behind him. His heart trembled as he felt the aura of death. At this time, Cho Buohong didn't have time to speak. He quickly looked behind him and his hair stood on end. He saw that Yi Xing's black dragon spear had already pierced towards his back. Cho Buohong's astral essence erupted to the limit. His body was covered in a layer of flames and his astral essence was already burning. His speed erupted as he wanted to avoid this spear. But even so, Cho Buohong's speed was still inferior to Yi Xing's spear. In that instant, an icy chill penetrated his heart. Cho Buohong didn't feel any pain. But as he looked down, he saw that the spear point had pierced through his chest. Chapter 352. As Cho Buohong saw the spear point in his chest, he realized that he had been pierced through by this spear. Because this spear was too fast, even though it pierced through Cho Buohong's body, he didn't feel any pain. It was only at this moment that he saw the spear point pierce through his chest, dripping with blood. Only then did he feel the intense pain that came from his body. Cho Buohong opened his mouth wide and cried out in fear. But his throat wasn't able to emit any shrill sounds. All he could do was emit a hoarse roar. The black dragon spear had pierced through Cho Buohong's heart. This was a fatal wound. Cho Buohong's vitality rapidly faded away and he didn't even have the time to cry out. Blood gushed out from Cho Buohong's mouth. In just several breaths of time, his head tilted to the side and he died. In the skies, Yi Xing's blue cloud wings spread open behind him. He calmly stood in the void, grasping the black dragon spear and thrusting forwards. The spear point pierced through Cho Buohong's body, fixing his corpse in the air. Even as Cho Buohong died, his eyes were filled with regret and unwillingness. When he fought Yi Xing, he didn't lower his guard because he underestimated Yi Xing. But it couldn't be denied that he had underestimated Yi Xing far too much. It was because he underestimated Yi Xing that he thought Yi Xing was only a genius of the younger generation, someone who hadn't stepped into the sage realm yet. It was impossible for him to be a match for a two-star sage like him. Thus, when he saw Yi Xing, he didn't notify anyone. Instead, he wanted to kill Yi Xing and take all the treasures for himself. Ultimately, this had led to his own death. In truth, Yun Zhanfei dying under Yi Xing's hands was a very bad omen. This should have caused Chou Buohong to place more importance on Yi Xing and avoid a one-on-one battle with Yi Xing as much as possible. Unfortunately, Chou Buohong was attracted by the treasures and wanted to take all of Yi Xing's treasures for himself. Thus, he made an irrational move and naturally had to bear serious consequences. Yi Xing put away the black dragon spear and Chou Buohong's corpse fell from the skies. The black dragon spear shook and a cold light flashed on the spear point, leaving not a single drop of blood on it. When Yi Xing landed on the ground, he retracted his azure cloud wings and collected Chou Buohong's storage ring and mid-grade spirit spear. With a wave of his hand, he burned Chou Buohong into ashes with the star fire. Chou Buohong, you're not the first, and you won't be the last. East Fu Sect, Flying Cloud Sect, Blood Spectre Sect, Divine Wind Sect, and Sun Moon Sect. Just you wait. It won't be long before I uproot all of you. This is the price you have to pay for attacking my Falling Star Sect. Seeing Chou Buohong turn into ashes, Yi Xing said coldly. In the distance, Chou Buohong's red-tailed eagle flapped its wings and flew away. Yi Xing took out the purple firmament bow and a purple gold arrow. With a single shot, the arrow cut through the void for several miles and instantly struck the red-tailed eagle's head, instantly killing it. Yi Xing waved his hand towards the distance. The third-level monster beast, the black-armored iron bull, quickly ran over to the red-tailed eagle's corpse and began to enjoy its meal. Yi Xing continued to practice his martial arts. The dark spirit spear art had already reached the manifestation boundary. What he needed to practice next was the heavenly bat steps and the 4 divisions arrow art. Wind potential had a great effect on the cultivation of the heavenly bat steps. In addition to the 4th level of heart force, it didn't take long for his attainments in the heavenly bat steps to reach the manifestation boundary. With the heavenly bat steps reaching transcendent perfection, Yi Xing was no longer constrained by the situation. Every step he took had a terrifying speed. Speed was his advantage to begin with, and now it had risen to another level. As for the 4 symbols arrow technique, because Yi Xing's heart force was closely related to the art of archery, it was a piece of cake for him to cultivate it. In less than 2 days, he had reached the transformative stage. When one's martial arts reached the manifestation boundary, they were no longer constrained by the moves. Each of their moves contained unpredictable power. Yi Xing's dark spirit spear art, heavenly bat steps, and 4 divisions arrow art had all reached the manifestation boundary. Compared to when he had just reached the half-step enlightened person, his strength was incomparable. After reaching the manifestation boundary of the 4 divisions arrow art, Yi Xing continued to practice the upper-tier spiritual martial art, Flame Dipper Fist. As an upper-tier spiritual martial art, the Flame Dipper Fist was much harder to practice than middle-tier spiritual martial arts such as the Dark Spirit Spear art. However, Yi Xing had the help of the Superbrain. His body had already formed the Star Dipper and he also had the 4th level of heart force. Thus, he was able to practice the Flame Dipper Fist very quickly. 3 days later, Yi Xing stopped practicing the Flame Dipper Fist. His attainment in the Flame Dipper Fist had far surpassed the small success stage. He was only 1 step away from the greater success stage. However, the greater success stage of the upper-tier spiritual martial art required too much of the Star Dipper. It was not that Yi Xing could not comprehend it, but his cultivation was too low. At the half-step enlightened person level, it was basically impossible for him to break through that last step. Thus, he could only give up for now. As long as Yi Xing's cultivation broke through to the Star Dipper realm, the greater success stage of the Flame Dipper Fist would follow naturally. Yi Xing sat on the ground and took out a big piece of frost python meat from his storage ring. He pierced it with a lower-tier spiritual sword. Then, he waved his hand and ignited the starfire on the ground. He placed the frost python meat on top of the starfire and started to roast it. In the past few days, Yi Xing had been practicing martial arts and eating the dry food he had brought with him. Today, after he had finished practicing all the martial arts, Yi Xing's appetite had been aroused. He was preparing to roast some frost python meat for a big meal to reward himself. Yi Xing's star fire was extremely tyrannical. The frost python meat could not come in contact with the star fire directly, or else it would be burned to ashes. It could only be roasted on top of the star fire and let the heat slowly roast it. Not long after, oil dripped from the frost python's meat, emitting an appetizing aroma. The frost python meat was a natural top-grade ingredient. It did not need any seasoning. When roasted, it was already an exceptional delicacy. Soon, the frost python meat was roasted until it was golden and shiny. The aroma assailed the nostrils. Yixing was already salivating when he smelled the aroma. Whoosh! Yixing waved his hand and put away the starfire. The frost python meat had been completely roasted. Looking at the roasted frost python meat, Yixing's eyes lit up. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and prepared to enjoy the delicious meal. Smells so good, good food. Yixing was about to eat when a voice suddenly came from behind him. It was mixed with the sound of someone sniffing. Yixing heard the voice and his hair stood on end. He turned his head and saw that a bearded man with long hair and a bare upper body had appeared behind him at some unknown time. This man looked like a barbarian. He had a strong body and was 2 meters tall. His 2 arms were like a normal person's thighs. His muscles bulged like dragons. His entire person was filled with a sense of wildness and power. Whoosh! Yixing instantly shot up. Like a flash of light, he rushed forward several hundred meters. This barbarian-like strong man had actually appeared behind Yixing without making a sound. This made Yixing's hair stand on end. The black-armored iron bull didn't sound a warning. This meant that it didn't notice the barbarian's arrival. This barbaric man was able to evade the black-armored iron bull's vigilance, and was even able to silently appear behind Yixing. If he didn't make a sound, Yixing wouldn't have been able to detect him. This caused Yixing to be extremely shocked and scared. What kind of cultivation did this barbaric man have? If this barbarian had wanted to harm him, he could have launched a sneak attack from behind and killed Yixing in an instant. Yixing turned around and looked at the barbarian from afar. He asked, "Who are you?" The barbarian cracked a smile. "Haha, you don't have to be afraid. I don't have any evil intentions. If I did, you would have been dead before you could even sense my presence." The barbarian spread his hands, indicating that he was talking about something big. Even so, Yixing was still scared. He used his superbrain to scan the barbarian, but he couldn't detect his cultivation. The barbarian saw that Yixing was very vigilant. He said, "I was cultivating in seclusion in the dark canyon, comprehending the power of darkness. I smelled the fragrance of your barbecue. Haha, it's too fragrant. My favorite thing in this life is delicious food. Although I only smelled the fragrance, I can guarantee that the barbecue in your hand must be a peerless delicacy." After saying that, the barbarian realized that he hadn't answered Yixing's question. He said, "I'm Hei. Hei Biao. You can call me Hei Biao. I want to eat the peerless delicacy in your hand. Of course, I won't eat it for free. I'll use my collection of peerless wine to exchange with you. How about it?" Hei Biao raised his hand and a dark green bottle appeared in his hand. It was about 3 inches tall. Yixing looked at the dark green bottle and thought, how much wine can such a small bottle hold? Hei Biao saw Yixing's expression and said, "Don't look down on my wine bottle. Hee hee. Even if it's a house full of wine, it can still hold it all. I'm about to leave the Qingyun region and expand the map to the entire True Xian domain. The 9 great sects and the sects in other regions have a lot of new settings and new characters. Then, I have to use the plot to connect these new settings, sects and characters. It's very troublesome and I'm stuck in a very miserable situation. Moreover, some readers said that the plot isn't good recently. This made me even more flustered. I don't know what to write next. Sweat. Yesterday and today, I've been thinking hard about the plot for the next 2 days. Now, I've finally straightened it out a little. How is it going? When it's done, please verify it. I'll update 1 chapter today. I won't use the previous chapters to make up for the missing chapters. I'll make up for it tomorrow. Adding chapters is adding chapters. Making up for the missing chapters is making up for the missing chapters. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Your support is the motivation for me to work hard. Thank you. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.